Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Naruto. I just returned to Konoha and found that everyone in the clan was gone. Chapter 61. Hearing Tsunade mention the pink-haired girl Yellen, she was also a little dumbfounded, and then said, "How could it be? I'm still young and haven't accepted a disciple yet, and I still have a lot to learn. Sakura will be led by Tsunade-sama. The guidance couldn't have been better." Quote. Looking at Yellen's expression, Tsunade understood that he was not telling lies. Seeing this, she couldn't help but admire it. Yellen was not only powerful but also had qualities that many people did not possess. Many people did not pay attention to it. As a Tsunade, who is both delicate and thoughtful, feels it the most. No matter who is called a genius, it is inevitable that he will be a little inflated and lose awe of many things. Even Sannin was a little arrogant when they were young, but Yellen did not have this situation at all. Everyone in the village gets along well with each other, not like an Uchiha at all. And it will always be a reliable backing in the mission. You must understand that the mission report not only contains Jonin's summary, but also some feelings written by Genin. Many people will not care. Tsunade has carefully read other people's evaluations of Yilan, and in her heart she feels some of his vigilance was slowly dispelled. The most important point is that he is too young. I heard that he still goes to the library to read books from time to time. He has not relaxed a little in his spiritual practice. He has obviously gained a lot of fame and has not put down any demands on himself. She seems to be in Yilan. See the shadow of Namikaze Minato, a true genius. In a few years, Tsunade wouldn't be sure that she would be able to take down Yilan. After thinking for a while, Tsunade made up her mind and said to Yellen, "It is too easy for Orochimaru or Itachi to enter Konoha. Although they were ninjas of Konoha before, Konoha's vigilance is really bad. The barriers class also sensed that there was no movement at the barriers. What do they think this is? The back garden?" Yilan had been listening quietly, knowing that what Tsunade said next was the key point. "Through your teaching Sakura, I can see that you have a strong learning ability and have your own ideas. I plan to let you supervise the restoration of the village's barriers again." It was not an easy decision for Tsunade to make this decision. Barriers in the village were only direct confidants of the Hokage faction. They were related to the guarantee of the safety of the village, which was equivalent to handing over the life of the village to Yellen. Yellen didn't expect Tsunade to make this decision, and there was a hint of surprise on her even face. "Tsunade-sama, I am not a grandmaster regarding barriers, and I have learned very little. You should leave this task to others." Quote. Tsunade closed her eyes and waved her hand. She knew that this decision was sudden and many people in the village would be dissatisfied, especially Danzo and the two advisors. And this is what she thought. The two advisors and Danzo have too much power. With Anbu's existence, Danzo even controls the root of the organization that does not obey Hokage's orders. No matter what she does, she will do it. Consider what this group of people think. It's good that she is the granddaughter of Senju Hashirama, but she has also left the village for a long time. There are not many people who can really trust her. Many ninjas have shown goodwill to her, but it is actually some kind of transaction. Instead of giving benefits to these ninjas, it would be better to use Uchiha, who was just two people. She could see Yellen's desire to integrate into the village, and she was happy to help. The higher Yellen's achievements are, the more she will support her Hokage's vision, and Yellen will definitely be at odds with Danzo and his advisors, thus weakening the rights of these old people in disguise. Tsunade is not greedy for power, but no one likes to be faced with difficult decisions. I will give you some books about barriers and sealing techniques. You can try to learn them. There are no masters in the village who can skillfully use sealing techniques, so it doesn't mean they have been buried. Tsunade took out a few scrolls. "I only give you 1 month, and then the village's barriers will be renovated. Whether you can be a stable supervisor depends on your results this month." "Yes, Tsunade-sama, I will definitely complete the mission." Yilan looked a little excited and took the scroll with both hands. Seeing that the effect was achieved, Tsunade couldn't help but smile. This was the normal behavior of a 15 or 16-year-old boy. If Yellen remained calm, she couldn't help but wonder if he had other thoughts. After the two chatted for a few more words, Yellen left the Hokage building, opened the door of the building, and the sunlight shone on Yellen's face again. The excitement just now has disappeared. Yi Lan raised his head and looked at Tsunade's office expressionlessly. At this time, Tsunade, who was still in the office, seemed to sense something and turned to look in the direction of Yi Lan outside the window, only to see Yi Lan smiling. He greeted her like a sunny and cheerful boy. Yelin didn't waste time when he returned home. He picked up the scroll given by Tsunade and started studying. As a Blue Star person who had experienced the high school entrance examination and the college entrance examination, he had his own way of studying and understanding the content. For Naruto, reading such complicated and difficult books that only contain theoretical knowledge, many people don't know sealing techniques and can only study by themselves, will kill him. From the simplest sealing circle and three-way seal to the difficult four-image seal, the scroll Tsunade gave Yelin was full of useful information. Before that, Yelin only knew some simple sealing items, not even sealing techniques, of low-level sealing techniques. Yi Lan, who had never seen a sealing master before, had his eyes opened. He would be wary if he met some sealing masters in the future. Learning sealing techniques not only requires precise chakra control but also requires a lot of learning. The light principle of each sealing technique scares many ninjas away, not to mention the large number of seals required to perform sealing techniques. Beginners cannot apply it in actual combat at all, and when they reach the level of Jonin, they don't have that long to learn, and they will also change their fighting style. When the time comes, they don't know whether they can increase their strength, but they waste time. Only those who have consciously learned sealing techniques since childhood can fully apply sealing techniques in combat. Yelin didn't expect the sealing techniques to bring much improvement. He would be satisfied if it could increase some fault tolerance in his battles. In a month, Tsunade didn't expect him to immediately become a sealing techniques master and be able to achieve the level of general usability. To the extent that he can't escape the position of director. Yelin Shanshi will take out the reincarnation of the dirty land that blackmailed Orochimaru to learn, but this kind of ninjutsu requires a lot of experiments, and he can't do such things as live experiments in the village. As a Jonin, he couldn't leave the village for no reason. He knew that there must be someone in the village watching his every move, and he usually didn't care that if something unusual happened to him, the higher-ups in Konoha would know about it. If the task of repairing barriers is completed this time, he can leave a hole for himself. He can enter and exit the village at will, and the experiment of the reincarnation of the dirty soil can be carried out. The material for that time will be some evil bandits and gangsters. He does not ask for it. The technique of the Uchiha reincarnation is so complete that he only needs to reincarnate the dead Uchiha clan members from the Uchiha to get most of the information. Yelin doesn't care if he is studying with gusto, he will feel bored as well, but if he knows what he is carrying, his learning mentality will be different. At present, he has gained Tsunade's trust. As long as one or two important tasks are completed, he will be entrusted with an important task. He will get closer and closer to the core secrets of the village, and the truth about the night of genocide will be revealed bit by bit. Tsunade, how could you make such a ridiculous decision? Kaharu and Mito Kadoyan had already learned that Yi Lan was about to take charge of repairing Konoha barriers, and went directly to Tsunade to question. Absurd, why didn't I see it? Tsunade had already prepared in her heart. As long as she was tough, there was nothing the two advisors could do to her. You must be on high alert for the Uchiha clan. During the Nine Tails rebellion 12 years ago, many people saw Sharingan in the eyes of Nine Tails. Shui Menyan reminded. Tsunade was not in the village at that time, and Nine Tails caused too much damage at that time, which also made the top management of Konoha, who had always been wary of the Uchiha clan, suspicious. You also know that it was 12 years ago. How old was Yi Lan at that time, and could he have the ability to control Nine Tails? Tsunade didn't want to think about those old things. These things cannot have anything to do with Yi Lan. You can't say for sure, even if he doesn't control Uchiha of Nine Tails, he might still have contact with him. You have to know that that kid Yelin has eyes like Uchiha Madara, we all saw it a while ago. Kaharu went to bed. The eyes that had been squinting were greatly enlarged. Susanoo's appearance could not be hidden from the top management of Konoha. She felt afraid of this kind of power. Tsunade, who had only heard of it, didn't pay much attention to it. She looked at the consultants who had always been biased against Uchiha and couldn't help but sigh and said, the original Konoha was founded by my grandfather and Uchiha Madara. Now the only Senju clan left is apart from me, there are only 2 imps left in the Uchiha clan. Even if the Uchiha clan has made any mistakes before, it has nothing to do with them. Have you lived so long that you don't even have any tolerance for others? The 2 advisors who were lectured by Tsunade blushed. They didn't know how to answer Tsunade. They couldn't tell him that they instigated Itachi to massacre the Uchiha clan. This simply exposed their background. Okay, this matter has been decided. Next, it depends on Yilan's talent at sealing techniques. Tsunade took the opportunity to put this matter into effect directly without making any changes. HMPH, you are the only one who would have the idea to ask the Uchiha clan to learn sealing techniques. After going to bed, Koharu was still stubborn even at the end. It doesn't matter if he is Uchiha, he is Yelan. Tsunade is full of confidence in Yelan. Now, what is our Yilan doing? Turning your eyes here, he is shopping. He is not lazy but just working behind closed doors and may not be able to accomplish anything. He needs to relax now. Yilan, I met an acquaintance on the street. It was Mitarashi Anko, the captain of Yilan's Chunin exam. At this moment, she was holding a large bunch of sweet meatballs and eating them with relish, leaving a lot of food crumbs at the corners of her mouth. You should also eat less sweets, otherwise you will become a 200-pound fat man in the future. Yilan said, looking at Hongdu's unrestrained eating habits. No problem, I never gain weight. Hongdu smiled and patted his chest. Yelan had nothing to do with Hongdu's character. She was considered an acquaintance of hers in Konoha and asked casually, I haven't seen you recently. Where have you been on a mission? Master Hokage asked me to investigate the truth behind the murder of a noble. The murderer could not be found at that time. It took me a long time to find some clues. It seems that there is a famous bounty hunter in the underground bounty industry. What is his name? Kakuzu. I heard that guy also fought against first Hokage. Are you kidding me? Shodai has been dead for many years. Anko said as she raised her head and thought for a moment. You're not going to investigate the truth about the murder of the Kanagawa family, are you? Yilan felt familiar with Hongdu's description and interrupted. That's right. How do you know? My previous mission was to protect the safety of Kanagawa's eldest daughter, but I didn't expect that the other party would attack me as soon as I stepped forward. Yilan spread his hands, but he didn't expect that the other party would do this. It seems that being famous has this advantage. The other party doesn't dare to attack when you are here. Hongdu teased. It's not that exaggerated. I have fought against them before. The opponent is very strong. If you encounter him, run away immediately. Yilan didn't know if Kakuzu had fought against first Hokage, but just a little contact with him showed that he was not a simple person. Seeing that Anko was not paying attention, Yilan said in a warning tone, that guy is no less dangerous than Orochimaru. Anko also stopped laughing when she heard Orochimaru's name, and said in disbelief, is it so exaggerated? No, I have fought against them all and have my own judgment. After Yilan said this, Hongdo nodded seriously. Will the curse mark on your body still affect you? After talking about the mission, Yilan asked about Hongdo's condition. He was beside Hongdo when the curse mark broke out, knowing that this thing was a side effect for Hongdo. Fortunately, as long as I don't consume too much chakra, this thing actually has no effect on me. Why don't you? Let me reinforce you with sealing techniques. If you can't use your full strength to perform the task, it will affect you. Yilan was not just on a whim. He also wanted to know how far he had achieved the sealing techniques he had studied for a period of time. Do you know how to do sealing techniques? Hongdu really couldn't imagine that a ninja like Yilan, who also had great achievements in swordsmanship and ninjutsu, would learn sealing techniques. I just have some feelings recently. Dealing with things like curse seals shouldn't be a problem. Yilan couldn't say that he had just learned it for a short time, and he just wanted to find someone to practice with. Okay, let's go to the driving range. Hongdu knew that many sealing techniques required tedious arrangements, so she took the initiative to bring it up. Yes. After the two arrived at the training ground, Yilan first drew the magic circle for sealing techniques in an open space. Seeing Yilan's impressive Hongdu, he couldn't help but feel relieved. You sit in the formation and your curse seal leaks out, Yilan said after drawing the formation. Hongdu didn't care at all, and took off the coat she had been wearing, leaving only a tight-fitting fishnet suit on her upper body, and sat directly in the magic circle. Yi Lan stood behind Hongdo and stared straight ahead. He looked at the curse mark that had been revealed on the back of Hongdo's neck and said, "It might hurt a little." Hongdo wanted to turn around and ask Yellen how much it hurt. Yellen's fingers completed the seal in 1 second, Yin Mao Si Wu Wei, sealing the evil seal. The chakra was concentrated on his right hand and pressed on the curse seal. The special symbols drawn around the circle all flowed to the curse seal on Hongbu's neck, gradually forming a seal. Ah! Hongdu couldn't help but screamed out in the end. This was a kind of nerve pain that ordinary people couldn't bear at all. It didn't take long, both Yellen and Hongdu were sweating profusely. The first time they used Yellen was a bit unfamiliar and took a lot of energy. Hongdu was purely hurt, and finally the seal was ended, and the curse mark was on Hongdu's neck. A circle of magic appeared around him, and he had succeeded. Ha! Enko gasped, "Is it over?" Well, Yellen thought for a while and said, "But in my opinion, the curse seal is not all bad. You can study how to use the curse seal in the future. Currently, the curse seal has been completely suppressed by my sealing techniques. You can try to add some curse seal power to ninjutsu, which will have some unexpected benefits." Just now, Yellen used the evil sealing seal to clearly feel the power of the curse seal. The energy was very similar to the natural energy he had practiced. Orochimaru just added his own seal to it, and the way he used it was also extremely rough. He used it for a long time. It will greatly damage the body's functions. Realizing the principle of the curse seal, Yi Lan changed the performance of the evil seal, adding some natural energy in his own body to balance it, greatly reducing the side effects of the curse seal. The power is not as good as before, but the risk of using it is almost non-existent. Hongdu touched the curse mark on his neck and indeed it no longer had the same strange feeling as before. It felt like it had become a part of his body. "You will be an Anbu from now on. Have you decided on your code name?" Tsunade asked, looking at Sasuke who was already wearing an Anbu uniform. Sasuke picked up a mask with a mask that resembled an eagle on it. "My codename will be Eagle from now on." HMPH, this codename is really not good. Tsunade held her face with one hand. "Tenzo, I will leave the eagle to you from now on." Sasuke was slightly stunned after hearing this. A relatively tall man appeared in the office, wearing a cat face mask and appeared next to Sasuke. Unable to see the expression behind the mask, Sasuke felt a little stressed by Tenzo's stare. He seemed to be sizing him up as soon as he entered the room, which made Sasuke feel very uncomfortable. Remember, no matter what tasks you perform in Anbu from now on, you cannot disclose it to non-Anbu members, including Kakashi and Yellen. You only need to obey Hokage's orders, understand? Tsunade gave Sasuke a final reminder to prevent him from being unaware of the importance. Yes, Sasuke bowed slightly. He understood that Tsunade was different from Kakashi. From now on, she would be her direct superior. He could not refuse all of Tsunade's orders. Even if Tsunade asked a group of Anbu to die, these people would not frown. With a frown, he was ready to enter Anbu. Then Tenzo led Sasuke to Anbu's base. After assigning Sasuke to a class, he went to do other things. As the captain of Anbu, Tenzo would definitely not be in the same class as Sasuke, but just serve as Sasuke's new squad leader. He said hello and left. The squad leader's code name is Shadow, and he doesn't look too old. He is not wearing a mask at the moment and is looking at Sasuke with a smile on his face. The other two teammates are a woman with long hair codenamed Antelope, and a tall man codenamed Mountain Rat. "I didn't expect you to be assigned to our class, Uchiha Sasuke." Antelope's voice was nice, and her long golden hair also added a lot to her appearance. Seeing that the three of them knew his identity and no longer hid it, Sasuke took off his mask and looked at his future teammates with a calm expression, as Anbu so undisciplined. After hearing what Sasuke said, Ying whistled. "What do you think Anbu is like? After all, people have their own lives when they are not performing tasks." But Sasuke didn't react, and Kage's sudden attack hit him directly in the abdomen, causing Sasuke to almost vomit from his dinner. Seeing Sasuke's embarrassed look, Ying said casually, "I don't care if you are a genius or not. In Anbu, only strength speaks. Everyone present is your senior. For newcomers, just give me honorifics honestly. Neither your teacher Kakashi-senpai nor your clan brother has anything to do with Anbu. Quote. Okay, Kage, you don't have to be like this. How old is Sasuke? Yamashu advised with a smile on his face, and stepped forward to help Sasuke up. Sasuke directly opened the mountain rat's support with one hand and stood up slowly. Strength speaks for itself, I remember it. Looking at Sasuke's leaving figure, Kage shrugged helplessly. Antelope couldn't help but said, look at what you did, I'm really not afraid that Kakashi-senpai will cause trouble for you. Please, I also listened to Kakashi-senpai's words and let this kid suffer a little bit. Isn't this okay? Kage returned to his somewhat casual look, that Sasuke isn't going to file a complaint, right? What if he just leaves like this? What will happen tomorrow's mission? Quote. I'll go ahead and tell you, haha. The good-natured Sasuke still took over this job. As the oldest person in the class, he is not the strongest but has the best temper. He has experienced many things, but for Sasuke no bad feelings. Before his strength is not strong enough, Sasuke must learn to adapt to Anbu's life. In the past, when he was getting along with his peers, Sasuke would always have no intention of releasing his edge. When he came to Anbu, his edge was not strong enough. Only when he becomes stronger can he change the rules. At this time what Yellen and Kakashi cannot teach with words, Sasuke must experience it personally before he can slowly calm down and continue to grow. 5 people from Area B3 will reinforce the barriers, and 3 people from Area C1 will make some confusing arrangements. Yilan has become the director of repairing Konoha's barriers, and is now assigning tasks to the barriers squad in an orderly manner. At first, the people in the barriers class were a little disapproving of Yilan. They felt that no matter how powerful Yilan was, it would be impossible for him to seal the Grandmaster barriers. At his age, how could he have so much energy to learn sealing techniques? It wasn't until Yellen showed off his hands indifferently that a group of people in the barriers class instantly became honest. The control of chakra and the smooth layout made them feel that they had really learned from dogs. Obey Yilan's arrangements honestly. Yilan watched the work of the barriers class, filling in some gaps from time to time. At this time, several people wearing dark vests appeared in front of Yilan. Anbu, what's the matter? Yilan met Anbu in some villages and confirmed his appearance. He was still very polite to Tsunade's direct troops. To comply with Lord Hokage's order, we need Yellenjanin to provide a barriers deployment plan. Please prepare it here. The Anbu in front of him had a cold voice, and his tone seemed to leave no room for doubt. Looking at the complicated patterns on the other person's white mask, Yilan was a little unsure. Is it necessary for Tsunade to ask Anbu to go and get a copy of the drawings? This is not like her style. Yilan said calmly. I handed the plan to Tsunade-sama yesterday. Who are you? Yilan's black pupils instantly turned into Sharingans, staring closely at each other's every move. Of course, he hadn't given it to Tsunade yet. Construction had just started today, and many plans needed to be changed based on the site. He didn't have the planning drawings ready at all. Hearing Yilan's answer, the other party was obviously panicked, and then the person in the lead said in a panic, maybe Tsunade-sama remembered it wrong, we will go back and report it right away. Stop. Yilan would not let this suspicious person go. A light appeared in his hand, and he swung his newly made ninja sword directly at the opponent without even trying it. Yilan did not intend to kill the other party, but just wanted to catch him, but the other party seemed to have slipped and pounced directly on Yilan's ninja sword. Yilan did not expect that the other party had a death-seeking mentality, and the ninja sword directly penetrated the other party's chest. Blood spattered all over Yilan. Even Yilan's IQ was confused by the other party's actions. Both the barriers class and the remaining 2 Anbu looked at Yilan. Killing your comrades from the same village, I know you are evil in your heart, Uchiha Yellen. Ignore the rules. What else do you have to say now? Danzo finally appeared in front of people at this time. There were several ninjas dressed as Anbu beside him. Now he has surrounded by Yilan. Ha, framed, old dog, you are good at this. The hostility in Yilan's heart was no longer hidden at this time, and Danzo had become his biggest suspect. Before, Yilan had thought that Uchiha, as one of the ninja clan who founded Konoha, would never be poisoned by his own family, forcing the high-level officials of Konoha to sit and watch. Now it seems that the genocide was better than he imagined. Even deeper. Yelan's momentum made even a group of ninjas who were concerned about life and death uncontrollable. Yelan looked around, and even these masked ninjas did not dare to look at him. That's it, Uchiha Yelan, hurry up and take action. As long as you do it, I can get you out of Konoha. Danzo wanted this effect, hiding at the back of the root ninja and keeping an eye on Yelan. Just when Yelan's aura reached its peak, he suddenly calmed down. Although it was satisfying to kill one party at this time, it would not solve the problem. It would also achieve the old dog's purpose. The only one who was really happy was him. Thinking of it, this kind of old dog can be happy, not to mention how uncomfortable Yelan feels. Uchiha Yelan, it seems that you confessed and accepted the facts. Seeing Yelan's calm appearance, Danzo, an old coin, suddenly felt bad and kept stimulating Yelan, so he had to command his roots to capture Yelan. What exactly is going on in this matter? I will explain it to Mr. Hokage. I don't have to accept your investigation without Mr. Hokage's warrant. Yelan looked at Genji, who came forward and stepped aside. Are you trying to resist arrest? Danzo didn't expect that this young Uchiha would be so difficult to deal with. Aren't all the Uchiha clan members stupid? It would be useless to stimulate him like this. I will explain Danzo to the Hokage-sama for instigating Konoha ninjas to frame their fellow villagers. Yelan's words seemed like suing a parent, but this was the most effective method. He didn't believe Tsunade could see it. What's the clue? Uchiha Yelan, stop making excuses here. If you commit such a crime, as a Hokage advisor, I have the right to take you down. Give them all to me. If you resist, it won't matter your life or death. Danzo didn't care about Tsunade, the Hokage. In his opinion, all of Tsunade's behaviors showed immaturity, and she was the only one who was doing it for Konoha's good. Consultant Danzo, what are you doing? Just when the people at the root were about to take action, Kakashi had already rushed over, and Kai was beside him. Fortunately, Yelan didn't take action just now, otherwise Kakashi wouldn't be able to speak for Yelan even if he arrived. He didn't have a good impression of Danzo. He even ordered him to assassinate the third generation. Later, when he became Captain Anbu, he also knew the root cause. Run and know what kind of person Danzo is. Kakashi has nothing to do with you here. Uchiha Yelan killed his companions in the same village. I am going to take him back to the root for interrogation. Danzo did not take Kakashi seriously. In his opinion, Kakashi can only be regarded as a knife, will not have its own thoughts and will. Well, I haven't seen this kind of thing with my own eyes. Let's leave it to Hokage-sama to make the decision, advisor Danzo. Kakashi seemed to be persuading but was actually standing next to Yelan. The corpse of the just dead root member was probably still there. Kakashi could say such a thing even if he wasn't cold enough, which made Yelan glance at him twice. Advisor Danzo, I have some understanding of Yelan's character. If he kills his companions, I, Metkai, will never let him go. Kai walked over and gave Danzo a thumbs up. The iconic toothy smile made Danzo's face twitch uncontrollably. Whatever you want. Danzo knew that he couldn't deal with Yelan this time, so he hit the ground with his crutch and turned around to leave with Genbu. Tsunade didn't need to believe this kind of thing, he wanted the other two consultants can take their own side. As long as he spreads the fact that Yelan killed his companions to the whole village, people who don't know him will have an opinion. After saying too much, he doesn't believe that Tsunade will still trust Yelan like this. As long as there is a thorn in Tsunade's heart, he has many ways to deal with Yelan. Kakashi said goodbye to Danzo and others with a smile. It wasn't until he left that he looked at Yelan seriously. What happened? Yelan recounted what had just happened in detail at this moment, and then asked, Kakashi, you stayed in Anbu for such a long time. There are some things I want to ask you. Kakashi was silent for a long time before sighing, just ask. What happened to the Uchiha clan when I left the village? Yelan didn't believe that Kakashi, the captain of Anbu, didn't know what happened to Uchiha. He didn't ask before because he didn't find a suitable opportunity. This time, Danzo's disruption is an opportunity. I thought you would never say anything about this kind of thing. Kakashi said leisurely, to be honest, I don't know very well, but Anbu was indeed monitoring the Uchiha clan at that time, but I can be sure that no one from Anbu took action, and our order was to stay on guard around the Uchiha clan's territory. In this way, the top management of Konoha at that time knew what would happen to Uchiha that night. Yi Lan suddenly became much more cheerful, but he still had some questions in his mind and said, "Surveillance clan. What did Uchiha do to make them so afraid? You know about the Nine Tails rebellion 12 years ago, right?" Hearing Kakashi talk about this matter, he had some doubts. Yellen was only 3 years old at the time, and he was just hiding in Konoha's defense facilities and didn't know much about it. It is said that on the day of the Nine Tails rebellion, a member of the Uchiha clan took control of Nine Tails. Yellen knew this news about Kakashi for the first time. He understood that Sharingan, especially Mangekyo, had strong restraint against tailed beasts, but he was known as the most powerful. Who has the ability to control the 9 tails of the strong-tailed beast? Shisui. No, Shisui had just graduated from the ninja school at that time and there was no way he could have Mangekyo. The 4th generation was killed because of this incident, and Hiruzen Sarutobi, who has returned to power, will definitely be afraid of Uchiha. I can't imagine anyone having the ability to control 9 tails at that time. To be honest, even with my current ability, it would be very difficult to control the tailed beasts. Yellen said truthfully, his Mangekyo was not biased towards Genjutsu's ability, but more towards the latter. Ninjutsu and physical enhancement. But that night many ninjas saw Sharingan in Nine Tails' eyes. A chill rushed straight to Yellen's scalp. He seemed to have caught something. It seemed like a big hand was controlling everything. The Nine Tails rebellion, the Uchiha clan was wiped out, and now there is the Akatsuki organization targeting tailed beasts. That's right, it's the Akatsuki organization. They definitely have something to do with all of this. Yi Lan has thought about it a lot, and now he still needs some key evidence and the purpose of the man behind the scenes to do these things. In fact, the original decision to monitor the Uchiha clan was also proposed by Elder Danzo. The 3rd generation project considered it for a long time before making the decision. Konoha was already fragile at the time, and the 3rd generation could not help but be careless. Kakashi still said here although he had some kind words for Sarutobi Hiruzen, it would be better to leave the hostility to Uchiha to Danzo, and this is also true. Danzo, does he have the right to mobilize Anbu? Yellen was surprised by Danzo's right to speak in the village. He had seen before that the respect those, Anbu, had for Danzo was not fake. That's not Anbu, it's general. Kakashi didn't hide it, knowing that Yi Lan would know it sooner or later. Sasuke who joined Anbu would definitely hear about Gen, not to mention other people who joined Anbu. Instead of Sasuke telling Yi Lan then, it would be better for Kakashi to just tell him now. Spread things out. Root. In their own words, they are the roots of the big tree, digging deep into the darkness to protect Konoha in their own way. Yi Lan couldn't help but laugh angrily when he heard this statement. Whether it was the invasion of Orochimaru or the arrival of Itachi, he didn't even see the shadow of these people. Let's go, don't keep Tsunade-sama waiting. I guess you should have received the news by now. Kakashi and Yi Lan said after they had finished chatting. Killing members of the Roots was not a big or small matter. He believed that Tsunade there will be judgment. I already know the matter. You just need to do what you are doing now. Don't ask any more questions. Tsunade's calm answer made both Yellen and Kakashi look shocked. Yellen had no proof to prove what he said. As a Hokage, Tsunade would not make such a decision no matter how much she believed in Yellen. Tsunade looked at the two confused people and said, "Don't think too much. I believe my vision is not that bad. I can still distinguish what is minor and what is serious." Yi Lan doesn't stay long anymore, and he still has to supervise the restoration of barriers after nothing happens. After Yellen and Kakashi both left, Tsunade opened the desk drawer and found a box of videotapes inside. Tsunade trusted Yellen to be honest but not to the extent of confiding in her heart. When repairing barriers, Tsunade arranged for Anbu to place many cameras around Konoha. This was not because she was worried about Yellen but because she was afraid that someone like Uchiha Itachi or Orochimaru would happen again. This kind of person sneaks into the village. Unexpectedly, the scene of the dispute between the two parties was captured. There was no sound in the video but it was clearly captured that the Root member was begging for death. Tsunade had some understanding of Danzo's character, and later Yellen did not take action and chose to believe in herself. It also gave her a reason to support Yelan. What's even more coincidental is that it was Uchiha Sasuke's team who took the video at that time, and reported it to her as soon as possible. Tsunade made a decision instantly after learning what happened. Tsunade. While Tsunade was still thinking about the follow-up arrangements, the door of the office was pushed open again. The people who entered the house were Koharu, Mito Kaden and Shimura Danzo. After Danzo entered the house, he couldn't wait to announce Uchiha Yellen's actions of disrespecting his elders, ignoring village rules, and killing his companions. Tsunade held her chin and said nothing. Facing Danzo's performance. Tsunade, Uchiha Yellen has gone too far. We must not let him go this time. He killed a root member this time and we won't know who it is next time. Seeing Tsunade indifferently go to bed, Koharu also started to fan the flames. Mitoman wanted to express a few comments, but after looking at Tsunade's vague smile, he became silent. Advisor Danzo, you're tired. Tsunade finally spoke, looking at Danzo's words without repetition, and what Yellen mentioned. Uchiha is an evil clan. I knew there was nothing good in this clan. It's all for Konoha and so on, which makes me have a headache. She stood up and poured a glass of water herself, gave it to Danzo, and said, have a drink of water after talking so much. Seeing that Tsunade had such a good attitude, Danzo couldn't help but feel a little happy in his heart, thinking that Tsunade listened to what he said and didn't waste so much time. He was really thirsty now, so he took the water glass from Tsunade with both hands to show respect. Now that we're done, let's watch this together. Tsunade turned on the TV in the corner of the office and inserted a videotape. When everyone was doubtful, the video clearly played the scene of the conflict between Yelan and the Roots. The Root member threw himself at the ninja sword in Yelan's hand as if he was begging for death, directly piercing the heart of everyone, including Yelan. Later, he wanted to have a fit but calmed down, and Danzo continued to be aggressive and wanted to capture Yellen. Click. The water glass Danzo was holding had cracked in his hand. At this moment, he felt like a clown. He had just performed so much and was laughed at by others. Danzo. Mito Kadoyan straightened his back and said, I really didn't expect you to be this kind of person. Framing fellow villagers, disrupting Hokage missions, and using power for personal gain. What on earth do you want to do? Danzo looked at Mito Kadobu's impassioned expression in surprise. Isn't that what I said when I came here? You don't know who I am. I was deceived by you, Danzo. Fortunately, I still believe what you said. Koharu turned to bed, his face not red at all, and turned his firepower on Danzo. Danzo was really angry this time. He was not so angry last time when he confronted Tsunade. This time, he didn't expect that his two classmates could be so shameless. They agreed to share the same hatred. And I am the same enemy as you. Stop talking, Danzo. Your incident has really affected the unity of the village. No matter what the Hokage does to you, I will agree with it. Mito Kadoyan was very glad that he didn't say anything just now. To be so straight. Me too, Koharu said hurriedly as he moved to bed. Isn't this good? After all, Advisor Danzo has also made a lot of contributions to the village. Tsunade looked embarrassed and said as if she was a little embarrassed. There's nothing wrong with that. Mito Kaden and Koharu said in unison. Okay, then it's decided. Tsunade waved her hand. This was the effect she wanted. From now on, I have decided to remove myself from the position of Danzo's advisor. No, the two people who were upright just now stopped them immediately. Just kidding, the Roots are considered the last bit of wealth belonging to old guys like them, and they must not be handed over easily. Danzo was also slightly moved at this time. Sure enough, his old classmates still knew the difference between right and wrong, and finally stood on his side. Tisk. Tsunade knew that this matter would not be so easy, and was not too discouraged. She changed the subject and said, what do the two advisors think of this? Advisor Danzo is also older. His position as the leader remains unchanged, and his number of people we need to cut it in half to prevent him from being too busy, and we also need to set up a deputy leader. I think Advisor Mito Monin is quite good and suitable for this position. I agree. Mito Kadoyan agreed immediately before Tsunade finished speaking. His actions after entering the house were indeed right. When Hiruzen was here, his rights were suppressed to death. Now it's finally time. He turned over. This. Kaharu was a little confused when she went to bed, why she didn't get anything, and she was so embarrassed. She and Mito Manabu were almost equal, but now the other party suddenly stepped up, and she felt in her heart there was an indescribable discomfort. Go to bed, Consultant Kaharu, I remember what you just said. Tsunade whispered in a leisurely tone. After going to bed, Kaharu suddenly trembled. He had been fanning the flames just now. It was good to be able to protect himself. Why should he go further? He nodded in agreement. Danzo saw that two people had sold him out again, and all the gratitude in his heart was fed to the dog. These two people were just bullying the weak and afraid of the enemy. The wind was strong and they were falling in that direction. Mito Manito even patted him with a kind face. His own shoulders, how could he have such courage before? Now that the situation was over, Danzo knew that he could only endure it again. His expression changed repeatedly, and he took a deep breath to calm himself down. It was useless to agree or disagree now, so he could only say, just press Hokage, do as your lord wishes. This sentence seemed to have exhausted all his strength, and he said it word by word. After saying it, he slammed the door and left. Danzo, this guy is really relying on his old age. Don't worry, Tsunade, I will definitely manage the route safely. Mito Manabu was so proud at this time that he already regarded himself as the deputy leader of the routes. Then you go and receive the route. If there are any problems, we will discuss it again. Tsunade said while holding back her smile. Today she also understood the personalities of the two consultants and successfully divided Danzo's rights. If Yilan had taken action at that time, it might have been a different outcome. After a busy day, Yellen returned home. This house was still the one provided by Hiruzen Sarutobi with only a small yard. It was not far from Uchiha's clan and there were not many people. Yellen lived alone and felt at ease. Yellen walked to the door and paused for a moment. He had already noticed that there was someone in the room. Could it be Danzo who still didn't want to give up? Yellen opened the door quietly, like a cat without making any sound. After entering the house, there was a smell that hit my face, and I saw Sasuke sitting in the living room holding two portions of Konoha's famous Ichiraku ramen. Why are you here? Yellen looked at Sasuke who was still wearing Anbu clothes and lowered his guard. He didn't expect Sasuke to come up with any reason and said casually, how is Anbu's life? As for Anbu, it's okay. Sasuke took out the bowl and chopsticks, poured the ramen into it and handed it to Yilan. Yellen took it and tasted Konoha's famous ramen. The taste was indeed pretty good, but it didn't feel as exaggerated as the rumors said. This was also because Yellen liked to eat rice. You don't have to think too much when you just joined Anbu. Just do some things step by step. Practice more in your spare time. Last time I saw you talking about Chidori's idea of injecting ninja swords into it, it was a good idea. For Sasuke, Yilan trusts him and he would try his best to help him even if he took care of him, without asking Sasuke to repay him in the future, at least leaving a seed for Uchiha. Sasuke took a spoon and slowly tasted the noodle soup. This is the essence of ramen, but he seemed a little absent-minded. Yilan ate not too slowly. When he finished eating, Sasuke still had half left. Seeing that he stopped talking, Yilan said directly, what on earth is going on? Sasuke asked himself to confirm what happened. It was difficult for him to take the initiative to speak, so Yilan took the initiative to bring it up. What happened this morning hasn't affected you at all, right? Sasuke said, staring at the ramen in front of him. How did you? Yilan now wanted to understand why Tsunade stood decisively on his side in the first place. It seemed that she didn't need to explain too much at all. Tsunade had already obtained the evidence. Don't worry, I will handle this kind of thing. It's nothing. Yellen stopped asking Sasuke in detail. This must be about his mission. Inquiring about Anbu's activities will affect Tsunade's perception of him. Tsunade since hand didn't tell Yilan, he just pretended not to know. What's more, Sasuke, who has just joined Anbu, can expect him to get any confidential information, and Yellen can't afford to lose a big deal for a small amount. Hearing Yilan's words, Sasuke also felt relieved. To be honest, Sasuke really didn't know what he would do if Yilan took action in the scene in the morning. Finally, the arrival of Kakashi resolved the farce. Why did Danzo's advisor target you? Sasuke couldn't bear his curiosity and asked some questions. He didn't understand how an outstanding ninja like Yilan, who had made great contributions to the village, could be targeted by the advisors. He's not only targeting me, but also Uchiha. Aim at Uchiha. Sasuke repeated Yilan's words. He and Yilan were the only two people left in the Uchiha clan. Is there anything to target? The nature of human beings is internal fighting. People like him will do anything for their own rights. You just need to be careful about this person in the future. He has suffered a lot this time and will not trouble you for the time being. Yilan did not tell Sasuke about his suspicions about Danzo. Sasuke couldn't help him at the moment, so he told him that he was afraid that he would do something bad impulsively, and that he would not only be passive but also get into countless troubles. Sasuke remained silent as he had not yet understood the darkness of the village. He hoped that Anbu's life would not only allow him to grow in strength but also allow him to understand the complexity of the human heart. No one came to disturb Yilan when he repaired barriers. It was just that those in the barrier class deliberately kept a distance from Yilan. Yilan didn't care at all. He just spread some bad remarks in the village, accusing Yilan of being a murderer of his companions. Murderer. Yilan smiled indifferently when he heard this. To put it bluntly, he stayed in the village for the truth. For this purpose, everything else had to give way. He was not in love with others. Elder Yan, you disappoint me so much. Tsunade angrily threw a book on the desk. She finally arranged for Mito Keitoyan to be the deputy leader at the root, but she didn't expect Danzo to make this scene again. Tsunade, you can't blame me. The time I have been in contact with the roots was too short. Not many people listen to me. Danzo also placed the Tongbane root jutsu seal on every root member. Mito at this moment Men Yan hurriedly explained how his airborne leader could compare to Danzo who founded the foundation. Okay, let me think of a way. Tsunade rubbed her temples with her fingers. Konoha had experienced this kind of thing before, when White Fang died. Tsunade was 100% sure that it was Danzo who did it. Unexpectedly, this old boy is still so dishonest. But even if you ask about this kind of thing, you won't be able to produce evidence. Instead, you will see Danzo's disgusting face. The control of the village is still not enough. Even if the members of the root are reduced, they are still so unscrupulous. Even Anbu cannot manage the root. Tsunade, who has been thinking about it, has a plan in mind. She looked at Mito Mano who was still in the room, and asked him to leave in disgust. Now she couldn't count on those two consultants at all. The more she thought about the plan in her mind, the more feasible it became, but if she proposed it there will be opposition from many people. Tsunade is willing to let go of her rights because she is afraid that these people will violate them. For now, she has to wait a while and needs to talk to other people. As for Yilan, it depends on whether that kid can survive this period of rumors, but in Tsunade's opinion Lai Yellen is not a person who cares about reputation like White Fang. At worst, let him go out for a while to relax and do a task or something. Tsunade, who was in a bad mood at the thought, also relaxed her brows, picked up the teacup and took a sip. Tsunade-sama. As soon as Tsunade took a sip of tea, Shizune rushed in, and Tsunade almost drowned in the hot tea. Shizune. Tsunade wiped her mouth with a handkerchief dissatisfied, it's Jonin after all. Can you be more steady? Tsunade-sama, there is indeed an emergency. Shizune's nervous expression did not ease because of Tsunade's teachings. She took out a blue scroll and said, there is a letter from Kurigakure village in the Water Kingdom. Kurigakure, a hostile village that fought against Konoha during the Third Ninja War, closed itself off after 3 defeats. No information was revealed. If Yellen hadn't come back, Konoha's top brass would not have known about 4th Mizukage. The blood-stained ninjas who will massacre Kurigakure village on a large scale. Tsunade no longer blamed Shizune and opened the scroll solemnly. It was impossible to tell whether Kurigakure was a friend or an enemy. 2 villages that had never had diplomacy suddenly received a letter. If Sunagakure is a villain who jumps repeatedly, then Kurigakure is a powerful lion majesty. I don't know what the purpose of this arrival is. In a snack shop in Konoha, a middle-aged man wearing a Kurigakure forehead protector was eating the food in front of him in an orderly manner, paying no attention to the vigilant Konoha ninjas around him. He looked at the boy who came with him next to him and couldn't help but feel anxious. How could Terumi-Mei let this genin follow him? Even though she had become a Mizukage, Shuang still had some opinions about her. Changjuro, what are you nervous about? Shuang growled. He didn't want Konoha ninjas to look down on their Kurigakure people. After coming to Konoha, he felt uncomfortable with the environment here and looked at Chojiro's face. He couldn't help but feel a little angry even though he was squirming. Master Frost, Changjuro looked very shy and could not tell that he was a ninja. Stop talking and eat your food. Shuang covered his face. After this mission, he will definitely report it to Terumi-Mei and never go on a mission with Chojuro again. This kind of person has never experienced the Blood Mist Village. He looked down on the ninja who had grown up. In a dark basement outside Konoha village, the humid air felt slightly chilly, and a familiar figure was tinkering with some bottles and jars. The art of psychics, the reincarnation of Dirty Land. A burst of smoke passed, and the dead person that came out of the channel looked like a zombie in the movie Yilan watched in his previous life. He had no consciousness of his own, and he was just an ordinary person. It failed again. Yilan really underestimated ninjutsu. The ninjutsu, and almost all the bandits nearby were captured by him. There was no successful case. He even doubted whether the scroll Orochimaru gave him was really the ninjutsu. Yilan, who was still thinking, paused. The shadow clone left in the village was released. The memories of the shadow clone before came flooding in. After digestion, Yilan put down the instrument in his hand. What is Tsunade doing with me again? Is she taking care of a child again? The previous rumors in the village had no impact on Yilan at all. The gap he had placed under the village's barriers also allowed him to enter easily. The only one left in the village usually was a shadow clone. If anything happened, the shadow clone would be released and tell him what happened. Looking at the simple workbench, Yilan suddenly felt that it was not a bad thing to have children. Now he really had no money. This little equipment had already emptied his family fortune. He had to go out and take on a few tasks. Now you can't borrow money from Kakashi anymore. So, why are you looking for me this time? Yellen said straightforwardly after arriving at Tsunade's office. This kid is becoming more and more casual. Tsunade looked at Yilan with some dissatisfaction. It seems that those gossips have not had any impact on you. Rumors only stop with the wise. Yilan casually quoted a saying he learned in his previous life. If some poems were not popular in this world, he would have copied two to earn some extra money. It's a good saying that rumors stop with the wise. Tsunade was relieved when she saw Yilan's appearance, pointed to the blue scroll on the desk and said, "Look, this is your mission this time." Quote. As soon as Yilan entered the room, he noticed this scroll with a strange material. As he expected, he picked up the scroll and opened it to look at it. After reading the scroll, Yilan looked at Tsunade with a somewhat complicated expression. The content of the scroll was not complicated. Mizukage from Kurigakure village invited Konoha to establish friendly relations. He specifically stated that during the reign of 5th Mizukage, as long as Konoha does not make any major infringements, no move in Kurigakure's interest would start a war against Konoha. The condition for this is that they hope Konoha will return their own ninja swords and help them re-establish the ninja school. There is no reason for Tsunade to refuse this condition. As a Konoha who has never established a friendly relationship with Konoha, if Tsunade can do this, it will greatly enhance his reputation. And Yilan, who went to carry out this mission, it will also increase your reputation. Tsunade will actually give Yilan this kind of task that is not difficult but requires a lot of qualifications. It was inevitable that Yilan looked at Tsunade with something wrong. If her previous trust in Yilan was based on detailed investigations, this time the steps were laid for Yilan to go up. Boy, what are you doing? If you don't want to go, I'll ask someone else to go. Tsunade said with a smile. I will pick up this mission, but I don't know much about signing the treaty if I go alone. Please be sure to add 2 more people to the Hokage. Yilan knew that this kind of thing cannot be done alone. Tsunade trusts herself on the one hand, and she also has to be discerning. Tsunade nodded silently, then let Asuma's team join you, and add an Anbu. Don't let down your guard when communicating with Kurigakure for the first time. Asuma is important enough as the son of the 3rd generation, and with the already somewhat mature Shikamaru, this lineup is luxurious enough. Anbu and Yellen almost guessed that it was Sasuke and his group who would go to the Kingdom of Water with him. Although Tsunade is from the Senju clan, she is now the one who deliberately cultivates Uchiha. Yellen is not happy about this kind of show of kindness, but secretly feels it in his heart. Sighing, I don't know that the two of them can still laugh like this in the end. In Yuyin village, the sky is still drizzling. This time it is not Nagato's rain tiger free technique. This has been the environment of Yuyin village for a long time. Nagato, who was sitting in a huge wheelchair, felt the cool breeze in the air and couldn't help but cough twice. Nagato, you'd better go inside and rest. Konan, who was worried about Nagato's body, walked out of the shadows. My body is not in such a state that I cannot see the wind and snow. Nagato is not that old, but his body in his 30s is as thin as an old man in his 70s or 80s. Madara, you are back. Konan was silent for a long time and said a message. Hey, Madara, just think of him as such. He messed up the country of water and ran back leaving a mess. Nagato said disdainfully. He never believed that the man in the Uzumaki mask was Madara. Now he only believes in Konan and the ideal in his heart. He is willing to sacrifice everything for that goal. Regardless of the strong people in the Akatsuki organization, there are only a few people who can truly obey his words. Once they know what he is like now, most of the ghosts will probably run away. Nagato, I think it's too dangerous to go to the water country. It's better to let Kakuzu go. Konan looked sad. She understood Nagato's wish, but she cared more about Nagato himself. Nagato was silent. He didn't know his physical condition. Every time he used the way of heaven, it would become more and more difficult. He didn't know when he would fall. Now he relied entirely on his obsession to support him. Kakuzu's strength is okay, but if I can't keep that person, I have to take action to be sure. Seeing that Konan was still a little worried, Nagato said, this time, I only need to bring Tendo with me. That person has left the village and we only need to take action. Just attack on the way. This matter was related to the future fate of Akatsuki. Nagato could not help but act cautiously. After Obito took control of the 4th Mizukage, he only knew how to kill blindly, and finally let Kurigakure overthrow his rule. The accidental death of Three Tails was all because of his own fault. Don't be careful, otherwise Shao would have to wait for 3 years. Seeing that she could no longer persuade Nagato, Konan stopped trying to stop him. She knew Nagato's character too well, and no one except Yahiko could interfere with his decision. It's raining heavily, Nagato, let me push you into the house. Konan walked behind Nagato and was about to push the huge wheelchair, but Nagato didn't stop him this time. Nagato, who was unable to move, stopped Konan behind him. He turned around slowly, stared at Konan, then opened his slightly dry lips and said softly, I will definitely protect this country and prevent it from being hurt again, and I will never let this country cry again. Konan's steps paused slightly, but she did not stop and continued walking forward. At that moment, their minds were connected, and their thoughts merged into one. There was no need for language exchange. Konan had no lofty ideals or ambitions. As a girl, she just silently supported her companions. She didn't care about other people's opinions. Opinions and prejudices, she only knew that Nagato and Yahiko would be very happy if the goal was achieved. I didn't expect that we would go on a mission together this time. Did I still owe you a meal last time? A group of people had left the Kingdom of Fire and were on the boat heading to the Kingdom of Water. Asma, who had nothing to do, walked up to Yilan and lit a cigarette. Yilan had no problem with other people smoking. With his body trained by natural energy, the harm of this secondhand smoke to him was not unacceptable. Asma, please be careful on the road. Yilan leaned against the railing on the deck, the sea breeze blowing the bangs on his forehead, which floated with the direction of the wind, making Yilan's eyes looming. Why do you say that? I feel that Mizukage is quite sincere. Asuma is not as rough as he appears, and his thoughts are considered delicate, otherwise he would not have become a boyfriend and girlfriend with Kurenai. Yellen raised his chin slightly and pointed in a direction. Asuma looked at the Kurigakure ninja who was some distance away from them. It was the Jonin named Shuang before. When he saw Yellen and Asma's eyes, he did not dodge them. He has been observing Yilan's every move. Even a fool understands Shuang's hostility towards Yelin. When Asma noticed it, he said, "What's going on with this guy?" Yilan actually had some doubts. He was sure that he had never seen this ninja before. The Kurigakure ninja named Shuang had never concealed his malice towards him along the way. What on earth had he done? Fortunately, this was obvious. Yilan was not scared by the hostility on his face, but was just a little surprised. The only possibility I can think of is that someone from Uchiha killed his companions during the third battle. Yilan expressed his inference. It seems possible. Asuma then remembered that during the Third War, Uchiha's main force was responsible for the battlefield of the Kingdom of Water. Even if fire style was suppressed by water style, Uchiha's performance on the battlefield was impressive. Many hidden masters died at Uchiha's hands. Sasuke, I heard that you entered Anbu. How is your life there? Ino did not expect to have the opportunity to perform a mission with Sasuke, and kept asking Sasuke questions along the way without stopping at all. Sasuke and his team did not wear Anbu's clothes, just casual clothes. After all, wearing Anbu's clothes to other villages may cause other situations. As Sasuke's teammates, the shadows have been watching the show. Are these boys and ninjas playing around like this? Konoha has really fallen. As his name suggests, Shuang had a cold face. Chojuro didn't even dare to say hello to Sasuke and others, and kept standing beside Shuang. Shuang's eyes kept lingering on Sasuke and Yilan. The two people he observed the most along the way, especially Yilan, had been hearing the title Uchiha's final pride everywhere since he left the country of water. He was talking about Yilan, but what he didn't expect was that Yilan was so young, and a healed scar on his back started to hurt again. Frost, who has experienced the blood mist, has a cold heart and a tough will. He has always been strict with himself and his subordinates. When he saw Genin from Konoha chatting and laughing together, he didn't like him at all. As a Jonin from other ninja villages, he didn't. Who has the right to give advice to Genin from other ninja villages? He can only turn around and walk to the bow of the ship, out of sight and out of mind. Don't worry, Asma, for now, the Kurigakure ninja named Shuang is not our enemy. Seeing Shuang who had left, Yilan said. Personal hatred is not worth mentioning in the face of the interests of the village. If Shuang can't even see this, Yelin really doubts Kurigakure's Jonin assessment system. Well, I hope it will be easier this time. Asma threw away the cigarette butt and left Yilan's side. Shikamaru found a seat on the deck. Looking at the materials in his hands, he couldn't help but have a headache. Why should he deal with such troublesome things? Shikamaru, you've almost seen all the materials. Asuma walked up to Shikamaru and patted him on the shoulder. It's really troublesome. Isn't this kind of thing Asuma done by Jonin like you? Why did you leave it all to me? Shikamaru complained. These materials were all prepared for negotiating with Kurigakure. Tsunade handed over them at the beginning. He gave it to Asuma, and Asuma threw it to Shikamaru as soon as he left the village. Haha, I will take care of the negotiation with you. After all, I still agree with how smart your brain is. Asma smiled without blushing. His subordinates had to share the tasks with him properly. He could do this himself. It is estimated that Kurigakure may not be busy enough by now, so after much deliberation, it would be more appropriate to leave it to Shikamaru. Let me help, too. At this time Antelope came over, picked up some files and started to read them. As Anbu, they were often exposed to files like this. As for the processing ability, only Antelope in Sasuke's class could handle one or two. Hey, this is too much trouble for you. Shikamaru saw Antelope stepping forward to help. Even though he liked to be lazy, he couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. He and Antelope were not familiar with each other, so he was embarrassed to trouble others. The salty sea breeze blew away the antelope's scattered hair. The antelope arranged its hair with one hand, turned around and smiled. We are all companions in the village. You are welcome. Shikamaru had never felt that he would be interested in women. When he saw the antelope smile, his face instantly turned red and he just gave two hesitant answers. Humph, Asuma, who has been here before, chuckled twice and poked Shikamaru twice. The antelope seemed to be only 15 or 16 years old, a little older than Shikamaru, but maybe this was how he could feel it, to the charm of women. Sasuke, look, there's such a big fish. Ino's noisy voice came over, attracting the attention of Asuma and others. I saw a big fish over 30 meters floating on the surface of the sea. It was basking in the sun leisurely. Its head spurted out a stream of air from time to time, and the fountain it brought out surprised Ino. That's not a fish, Chojuro said nervously at the side. Not a fish. Ino looked at Chojuro in confusion. She had never been out of the village. This was the first time she saw this creature. It looked like a big fish. Sasuke and Choji also looked at Chojuro, curious about what he would say. That's a whale, Chojuro, who was stared at by these people, said and ran to the side. He was really not used to being with so many people. Humph, a bunch of ignorant country bumpkins. Shuang looked at the people talking behind her and couldn't help but feel a sense of superiority. Several black shadows gradually appeared in the distance on the sea level. Ino thought they were some strange creatures. Not knowing Chojuro's name, Ino shouted, "Hey! What is that thing again?" Everyone looked in the direction Ino was pointing and saw only blurry black shadows. Shuang, who was standing at the front, gradually showed a trace of doubt in his eyes. As the target got closer, his expression changed from the surprised look at the beginning. Become a little calmer. It turns out to be a ship. But why are their sails black? Ino had some questions. It's a pirate. The shy look on Chojuro's face has disappeared a lot. Once the kid becomes serious, he won't think about nervous things and his expression will become more confident. After hearing that it was a pirate, everyone in Konoha turned serious. They had always heard that pirates were rampant near the land of water, but they didn't expect to encounter them this time. Everyone, when Yilan and others were still thinking about how to deal with this matter, Shuang stood on the bow and said loudly, "There is nothing to be afraid of. To me, these pirates are just a few petty thieves. As a guest from Konoha, just stay on the ship, I will deal with those pirates." Shuang said and threw out a scroll. After the smoke passed, an exaggeratedly shaped sword appeared in the air. The whole knife was nearly the height of a person. There were some bandages wrapped around the handle. There were no patterns or hand guards. The whole knife, in addition to the huge size, there is only a sense of simplicity. Under this strong sense of difference, Shuang tightly held the weapon. "Let me show you." After holding the big sword, Shuang's energy and spirit instantly improved several levels. What is a Kurigakur ninja? After speaking, Shuang jumped off the bow of the boat, put the big knife under his feet, and used the weapon as a surfboard to rush towards the pirate ship that was not far away from them. Water style, the art of riding waves. After Shuang's seal was completed, the seawater under his feet suddenly started to churn. Yellen and the others who were already some distance away also felt the bumps of the ship. Shuang was riding his big sword as if he was riding a tsunami, galloping through the sea. Awesome, not only Ino exclaimed, Sasuke also stared at Shuang's every move without blinking. Shuang's behavior seemed to frighten the pirate ship. A group of people on the pirate ship were obviously confused and turned the ship around in a hurry. It is not easy to turn around a huge ship. Before the pirates could react, he took advantage of the waves and flew directly to the pirate ship in the center. There was no chance to vent along the way, so Shuang was finally able to show off his skills. He swung the big knife down in his hand, and several water blades appeared out of thin air, directly turning his footing into an open space. Bang! Both feet fell on the deck, and the overwhelmed deck appeared to be broken. There were still some sawdust in the air. The pirate leader mustered up the courage and shouted to his companions to come forward and attack. Shuang showed a smile, and the huge ninja sword was in his hand. With extremely flexible hands, he dodged enemy attacks one after another. When all the enemies gathered around him, he let out a loud roar. Water style, water windmill. A stream of water appeared on the big knife in Shuang's hand. As he continued to rotate, the big knife formed a waterspout to wrap him up. The waterspout continued to grow bigger and sucked in all the pirates who wanted to attack him. The strong current made the pirate unable to hold the weapon in his hand, his clothes were gradually torn, and the whole person quickly lost consciousness in this spinning. Finally, Shuang stopped spinning and swung his ninja sword in one direction. The waterspout continued to wreak havoc in the direction he swung. The pirates kept running away like ordinary people encountering beasts. After a while, the ship seemed to be hit by a tornado. The attack was as chaotic as the attack. Buzz! Shuang turned around, and the ship made a sad sound. His technique directly destroyed a large ship, which was now slowly sinking. Shuang didn't take any notice and instead jumped to other pirate ships that had not yet arrived and escaped, and dealt with them one by one. Amazing, I didn't expect such a little-known guy to be so strong. Asma calmed down her initial contemptuous mood and looked at Yellen aside silently, only to see that he was calm and had no expression on his face. Sure enough, only such a genius can turn a blind eye to this scene. Asuma couldn't help but smile bitterly. The shock that Yellen gave him last time was still vivid in his mind. The Black Susan was deeply engraved in his heart like a demon. I kind of understand why the top brass in Konoha are so afraid of Uchiha. Sure enough, joining Anbu was right. Sasuke had already activated Sharingan and was observing Shuang's every move. This kind of character was not often seen when he was genin. Maybe Shuang didn't reveal any trump cards, but Jonin's fighting style opened Sasuke's eyes. I remember that Kurigakure has a special force of 7 ninja swordsmen. Is Frost Jonin also one of them? Shikamaru asked Chojuro next to him seemingly casually. At this time, he still had to collect as much information as possible. No, Chojuro looked in Shuang's direction, with an inexplicable emotion in his eyes, which relieved his nervousness. Shuang-sama has never been one of the 7 ninja swordsmen. To be precise, he has never been one of the 7 ninja swordsmen. I don't want to become one of the 7 ninja swordsmen. Chojuro turned around. Under the sun's rays, the glasses he was wearing had dazzling reflections. Master Frost said that he would make the sword in his hand become Kurigakure's 8th ninja sword. Yi Lan suddenly became interested in this Jonin named Shuang. In his opinion, many inheritances in this world are very important. Many people are proud of being born into a famous clan, including Yi Lan, a person who has traveled through time and space. Influenced by a clan, thoughts like Shuang's are rare. Are you famous not for the ninja sword, but for your own ninja sword? This pattern alone surpasses most people in the ninja world, let alone such a powerful Kurigakure elite. If such a person becomes a Mizukage, Yi Lan wouldn't be surprised. It didn't take long for Shuang to deal with the pirates. When he came back, he looked refreshed. Most of the grievances he had felt along the way had been released. The expression on his face was no longer so rigid. After he came back, he said to a group of people in Konoha. There have been some minor problems in the Kingdom of Water recently, which has led to rampant pirates. We at Kurigakure are used to it. If you encounter them again on the road, just leave it to me. When the group of people were relaxing, Yi Lan looked at a certain direction on the sea and touched his chin thoughtfully. Since he practiced natural energy, his ability to sense has become stronger. He can understand clearly even without the use of chakra perception. He could sense every move nearby, and just now he had the feeling that someone was watching him. What a risk, we were almost discovered. Black and White Jew sneaked for thousands of meters before daring to reveal his appearance. Why is this Uchiha Yi Lan's perception so strong? Even I was almost discovered. Hurry up and tell Nagato and Obito that the opponent coming this time will not be easy to deal with. Hey Highway murmured in his mouth and continued without stopping. Sneaked down. A seaside village in the Kingdom of Water. The sunshine at the beach this season was warm but not too harsh. It was rare for Nagato to bask in the sun outside. The land of rain had never had such a climate. Konan's figure appeared in a shadow. For some reason she hated the sun and would rather hide in a corner. She saw Nagato basking in the sun and spoke slowly. Madara and the others are already here. Not long after Konan finished speaking, the air began to twist in a place not far away, and a man wearing a swirl mask appeared. They are almost there, but this time a troublesome guy appears. Obito's expression under the mask was very ugly. Kurigakure's accident was closely related to him. As a last resort, he could only turn to Nagato for help. It really hurts his face as Madara. Does Uchiha Madara feel troublesome? Nagato sneered slightly, but his withered face looked a little scary. HMPH, my current strength is not 1/10 of what it was in my heyday, otherwise I wouldn't have cooperated with you. Obito's tone was unpleasant, and he tried his best to imitate Madara's demeanor in his impression. Oh, then let God solve it. Nagato revealed the reincarnation eye hidden under his bangs. No one is worth mentioning in front of the reincarnation eye. Obito was silent. In fact, he had a feeling that Nagato didn't believe he was Madara at all, but Nagato was no better. He almost burped. Tiantian thought he was a god and didn't know that the samsara eye was not his at all. It was just a human. Poor doll. I'm telling you that the guy who came with that guy is Uchiha Yellen, a junior with great potential. Be careful, he loses it. Obito doesn't want Nagato to fall so soon. The possibility of Yellen defeating Nagato is very small. He is just afraid something unexpected happened. Uchiha Yellen, Nagako murmured repeatedly. He had heard this name several times. Kakuzu also said that they met last time. He didn't expect that he would meet this person this time. In some ways, he said that Yellen and Xiao seemed to have some kind of fate. No matter who you are, you can only surrender before God. Nagato said confidently, it's you, Madara, don't let me down again, you already failed last time. Obito clenched his fists to hide his inner uneasiness. Before, he secretly controlled Yagura and single-handedly promoted Shuang, who was born as a commoner. Unexpectedly, he was betrayed, and the other party eavesdropped on the secret of Geto's statue, Yagura's original body. He was killed by Frost. Faced with the siege of Terumime and a group of Kurigakure Anbu, Obito had to flee from the Kingdom of Water. The last time he suffered such a big loss was when he faced his teacher, Minato Namikaze, but fourth Hokage only saw through his own moves and didn't know his purpose. I just hope Shuang doesn't reveal that Geto's statue concealed a tailed beast, otherwise the subsequent troubles won't be solved by 1 or 2 points. I will kill that traitor with my own hands without any accidents. The Sharingan revealed by Obito kept spinning, turning into a shuriken, and finally disappeared in front of Nagato. Chapter 71. The ship finally docked, and no more pirates were encountered. Yellen and his group arrived at the territory of the Kingdom of Water without any danger. Generally speaking, a village with a dock like this would be a bit prosperous, but there was no joy on the faces of these residents, and it was more of a kind of numbness. Is this what the Kingdom of Water is like? It seems to be no different from the Kingdom of You that we went to before. Ino whispered in Choji's ear. As one of the 5 major countries, the water country has turned into this. What happened to Kurigakure, who had previously been isolated from the country, to make the entire country lifeless? Shuang, who had been leading the way, stopped. Asma, who was thinking, almost bumped into Shuang in front. He looked up and found Shuang staring at a certain place. Asma, there are enemies. Yi Lan had already realized that it was wrong to warn him. After the others heard this, they all picked up their weapons. When the nearby residents saw them taking out their weapons, they hid in their homes. Even people who were numb at this moment would not take their own lives seriously. Who is it? Yi Lan. Asma looked at Yi Lan, who was a little wary and suddenly felt something bad. The dull air put a little pressure on him. Yellen closed her eyes and unleashed her chakra perception to the maximum. 1, 2. There are 2 people on the other side. No, there is another one, they are getting close. Yi Lan has opened his eyes, and the Sharingan in his pupils is constantly turning, looking around to find traces of the enemy. No. Will the other party be able to use ninjutsu such as invisibility? Yi Lan was sure that he sensed a trace of chakra fluctuations but failed to detect it. He couldn't help but said, everyone, hide separately. The ninjas of Konoha took action immediately after hearing this. When everyone began to look around for a hiding place, there was an opening in the center of them, the air twisted, and a man wearing a whirlpool mask appeared in the center. Invisibility. Space-time ninjutsu. How did he appear? Yellen was shocked. He looked at Obito, who appeared in the center. Obito slowly turned around to reveal the exposed Sharingan, which had now transformed back into a 3 Magatama form. Uchiha. One Eye. Who is it? Not only Yi Lan, but also Sasuke on the side also realized that the other person was probably a member of the Uchiha clan. Akatsuki. Seeing that the other party was wearing the same black-bottomed red cloud robe as Akatsuki, Yi Lan knew that there was some trouble this time. Akatsuki's strength was not weak. The other party might still be an Uchiha. It seemed that he came prepared, but there is no Jinchuriki in their team, and it is unknown what purpose Akatsuki has this time. It's you. Shuang's face began to twitch uncontrollably after seeing Obito, which was a sign of excitement. Asuma looked at Shuang in surprise, not expecting Kurigakure to have any contact with Akatsuki, and it seemed that Akatsuki had caused great losses to Kurigakure. Long time no see, Shuang. A vicissitudes of voice came from under the whirlpool mask, as if he had experienced many hardships. Thief, I won't let you escape this time. Shuang took out the sword he used in the previous battle and pointed it at Obito. Yi Lan was a little confused. It stands to reason that he has become a Jonin, and both his strength and mentality will have an extraordinary increase. Why is he so emotional when he meets Shuang? Could it be that this masked man killed his whole family? Frost Jonin, there are still 2 enemies, so don't be careless. Yi Lan reminded him. In fact, there was another thing that had always concerned him. The people he met Akatsuki before were usually in groups of 2. This time, it was unprecedented. 3 people appeared. No matter how you look at things, things will never be too simple, and you never let go of your guard. Oh, as expected of my juniors, have you noticed our number? Obito looked in the direction of Yi Lan and couldn't help but admire. Junior. Yellen listened to the other party's tone. Could it be that he was an old man who left the Uchiha clan before? In his impression, there was no famous Uchiha ninja who left the village. I originally wanted to see your abilities today, but today I have to deal with this Kurigakur ninja first. Obito's tone was relaxed, and it was not obvious that he seemed to be surrounded. You hidden guy, who are you? Sasuke couldn't help but get a little excited when he saw Sharingan, and this person seemed to be Itachi's accomplice. The last time he saw Itachi, he was eliminated as soon as they met, and he couldn't participate in Yi Lan and Itachi's relationship. Fighting, this time the strength has been improved somewhat. The ninja sword in Sasuke's hand released blue light, the familiar sound of Chidori sounded around, and the ninja sword was filled with electricity. Lightning style, Chidori blade. The ninja sword attached to Chidori quickly stabbed Obito under the control of Sasuke. Before Yi Lan could stop him, the scene in front of him went against the common sense of ninjas. Obito didn't dodge and directly let the ninja sword stab his body. As a result, Sasuke's whole body passed through his body. If it weren't for the fact that the ninja sword still had Chidori's current, others thought Sasuke didn't attack. What kind of technique is this? Asuma's eyes widened, and Sasuke's attack was ineffective. I'm not in the mood to play ninja games with you right now, Sasuke. Obito directly called out Sasuke's name and looked directly at Shuang after speaking. Wait a minute, Sasuke still had a lot of questions to ask, about the origin of this person with Sharingan and the whereabouts of Itachi, and then a strong wind blew over. The strong wind escape prevented everyone from retreating. Yellen and the Jonin had to stay together for Genin's safety. Yellen also knew in his heart that a new enemy was coming. When he sensed it before, he felt that one of them had a very strong chakra. Strangely, after the strong wind stopped, a blue-haired woman with paper wings appeared in the sky. The wind escape just now has separated the battlefield. It seems that the remaining 2 enemies will be dealt with by Konoha. Yi Lan is looking around for the last enemy. The weird chakra comes from the last enemy. This the strange guy who appears at the end may be the hardest to deal with. Dance of paper. Conan in the sky did not give everyone time to think. The papers around her formed a storm, and heavy snow like goose feathers fell one after another. Asuma has already seen the specialness of this Conan ninjutsu. He formed a seal with his hands and blew out a puff of smoke from his mouth, then bit down the flint hidden in his mouth. Fire style, ash accumulation. What surprised Asuma was that the flammable papers did not burn as he imagined. Instead, they continued to explode as his ashes accumulated. The originally choking smoke was spread everywhere. Konoha flow, shadow dancing leaves. As an Anbu elite, Cage has quietly arrived at the blind spot of Conan's sight, swung his ninja sword to attack, and the ninja sword hit the opponent's body without any feedback. This is what the shadow felt when he saw Conan turning around. At this moment, Conan's face had turned into paper. Just as he was about to evacuate, the paper clone exploded. The power of the paper clone was greater than Ying imagined. He could only protect his vitals. There were already traces of explosion wounds on his exposed skin. When the smoke dissipated, he saw that Ying was half kneeling on the ground, coughing out blood from his mouth. Squad leader. The first injured person appeared. Shadow's teammates and Ino and others began to panic. Antelope wanted to rush forward and bring Shadow back. She knew some emergency treatment methods, and the long-term tacit understanding made the mountain rat tightly by following her. He has to take on the responsibility of covering her. Just when the 2 of them were approaching Da Ying, Yi Lan finally found the last enemy, which was right next to Ying, and could only shout, "Don't go there." Before the two of them realized anything, they saw a man with orange hair appear in the shadows. He quickly appeared in front of the mountain rats and blocked their way. The last person to appear was Tiandao Pain. He raised his hands, and the two of them seemed to be faced with a huge resistance. At the last moment, the mountain rat blocked the antelope and helped her share a lot of the repulsive force. The person was thrown aside by this repulsive force. No longer bothering to check the injuries of the two people who fell to the ground, Yi Lan stared at the enemy who finally arrived, not because of the opponent's weird ninjutsu, but because of the opponent's eyes, where he saw the legendary Samsara Eye, very similar to what is described on Nanga Shrine, an ultimate eye technique that surpasses Sharingan and Byakugan. Even Yi Lan, who has always been confident in his own strength, has an unprecedented serious face. This man with the Samsara Eye has an absolutely extraordinary status in the Akatsuki organization, and is probably the leader of the opponent. It's unclear what kind of abilities the Samsara Eye has except for the inexplicable attack just now. This battle is definitely the most difficult one Yi Lan has encountered since returning to the village. Hey, Yi Lan, am I right? Is this the legendary Samsara Eye? Asma's forehead was already dripping with sweat. The woman just now made him feel troublesome, and now he saw the legendary eye again. The reincarnation eye. I really want to tell you that it's not. A cold light flashed in Yi Lan's hand, and the newly made ninja sword had appeared in his hand. Asma, let everyone else evacuate. This place is not for those who haven't become something Jonin's children can handle. When Tsunade issued the mission, she did not explicitly say that the captain was Asma. Most of the actions of the Konoha group were decided by Asma, so Yellen would ask Asma to let him make the decision. Asuma understood that he and Yellen might not be able to deal with the other two, but Shikamaru and the others really couldn't help, so he shouted loudly, "You guys evacuate quickly and go to Kurigakure to find help. Rather than trekking back to Konoha, it is better to seek Kurigakure who is close to it. If something like this happens in the Kingdom of Water, once Kurigakure knows about it, it is impossible to ignore it." But, Kage and the others. Sasuke was very unwilling. All his companions were lying on the ground with unknown life and death. How could he leave like this? Besides, the other party was from the same organization as Itachi, so it was very likely that he would have some useful information. He wanted to stay. Sasuke. Yi Lan looked at Sasuke with a serious expression. Sasuke lowered his head when he saw Yi Lan's expression and gritted his teeth tightly. He was like this again. Why was he still so weak? He didn't know how many times it was. Strong unwillingness filled his heart, and the Magatama in his eyes slowly turned, and finally changed from 2 Magatama to 3 Magatama. Sasuke took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Before he noticed the changes in his eyes, he said to Shikamaru Ino and others, "Let's go." Sasuke and others were about to leave, but Tiandao raised a hand in the direction of Sasuke and others. When Nagato sent out Tiandao, he would not let others leave, and he would try to conceal his information as much as possible. All things Tienin. A strong suction force appeared next to Sasuke and others. They could no longer take a step, they only felt that their bodies were flying towards the sky out of control. There was no warning, only a hand-raising movement, and no threats that could be seen with the naked eye like fire or thunder. Before Yi Lan and Asuma could figure out the principle, Sasuke and others were sucked back by the suction force. Yi Lan felt something bad, and the Sharingan in his eyes turned into a cross shape, and he was in the middle of the sky. The whole body was surrounded by the wind, like a bolt of lightning rushing directly towards Tiandao. Tiandao had been paying attention to Yi Lan's movements and raised his other hand calmly. The invincible speed seemed to be a decoration. Yi Lan's ninja sword had been raised, only a few dozen centimeters away from Tiandao's body. At this time, he was unable to move at all, and his whole body was floating in the air. "Oh, this speed is really fast." The words that seemed to be compliments had a sense of ridicule in Tiandao's mouth. Feng escaped Quilin Gale. Upon seeing this, Asuma threw out the chakra knife in his hand, which had strong wind energy attached to it and had a very strong cutting effect. "Your opponent is me." Konan, who had been silent all this time, spoke for the first time. The whirlwind of paper wrapped Asuma's ninja sword, and even the powerful wind escape was exhausted in the layers of paper. "Shinra Tenzhang." Yilan, Sasuke and others who were floating in the air instantly felt a huge repulsive force repulsing their bodies, as if they were hit by a dump truck, and they flew out directly. Ino and the others, whose physical fitness was not very good, immediately passed out. Sasuke struggled to stand up but found that he had no strength left and felt severe pain all over his body. He didn't know how many bones were broken. Yelin stabilized his body again. His body had been repaired by natural energy, and his physical quality was not inferior to that of Jonin, who specializes in physical arts. The Mangekyo in his eyes had not disappeared at this moment. He glanced at Sasuke lying on the ground and found that there was still a sound. I couldn't help but feel relieved. Yes, he is indeed someone who has fought against our Shao. Tiandao seemed to be like a doll, with no emotion on his face. Is it gravity and repulsion? Is this the ability of the Samsara Eye? Zibi Fujin directly saw the principle of Tiandao's tricks, but it was difficult to crack this technique. It was too difficult for Yelin to get close to Tiandao alone. Does this mean you can see through my moves? Or is it your Sharingan's ability? Tiandao also noticed the difference in Yilan. It is not easy to see through this invisible ninjutsu. He only used it twice, but the other party turned on Mangekyo directly. Understand the principle of the technique. This is not only something that a high combat IQ can do. If I remember correctly, the purpose of your organization is tailed beasts. What is it for this time? There are no Jinchuriki in our team. Yilan wanted to get as much information as possible and asked directly, and this time you unexpectedly sent out 3 people. If I guessed correctly, you all work in groups of 2, right? Yilan's words seemed to be from a questioning party, but the tone of the last few words was already affirmative. After hearing this, Tiandao finally showed an expression on his face. After a slight smile of disdain, he said, "You are indeed very smart, but you will definitely die today." Tiandao didn't intend to talk nonsense with Yilan anymore. He stretched out a hand and used the same suction force to directly cover Yilan's body. This time, the suction force was stronger than before. Yilan was unable to stabilize his body at all. The cross-shaped Mangekyo rotated crazily, and Yelin's momentum began to climb at this moment, and a black chakra continued to condense around his body. Susanoo. At this moment, any conventional ninjutsu had no effect. Yilan could only reveal his trump cards one by one. After Susanoo appeared, he directly pulled out the big sword from behind, and then inserted it directly into the ground. There was a loud noise, and the whole earth seemed to be shaking. The dirt road that had not been repaired for many years splashed a lot of dust. Nagato, who had lost his sight, also stopped the Vientiane Tengen and directly clasped his hands together. Since the other party used Susanoo, he's also going to start getting serious. Oh, has it started over there? Obito looked at the black Susanoo not far away and narrowed his eyes slightly. At this level of Susanoo, Yilan almost developed Mangekyo's ability to the limit, but without wood he probably hasn't used the style cells a few times. Obito looked back at the panting Shuang. Shuang's melee combat ability was too strong, and the big knife was made airtight by him. Even if he was able to get close by using virtualization, the ninja sword was always kept at the vital point of his body. The opponent had obviously figured out his ability. If he catches the opponent by force, although he will not die, he will be severely injured. This is not allowed by Obito. He must maintain the image of Madara at all times and cannot be injured. What we have to do now is to consume the opponent's chakra and physical strength as much as possible. In such a high-intensity battle, the opponent will sooner or later reveal flaws. Chengjuro. Shuang knew that he might end up here today and call out to Chojuro, whom he had always looked down on. When you go to the village to ask for support, be sure to ask Terumi-mei to come in person. Chojuro has always been around and can't help. Fortunately, Obito's target is not him, otherwise his current fate will not be any better than that of the cage and others. He has no time to correct Shuang's name for Terumi-mei. He did not hesitate after receiving the order. He left immediately. Obito didn't care about Nagajiro either. He looked down on this submissive boy. Even if he called Terumi-mei, he believed that he would have solved Shuang by then. Shuang, as Captain Anbu, who I single-handedly promoted, your betrayal really disappoints me. Without the interference of others, Obito also let down a lot of his guard. Oh, I am loyal to Lord Yagura, not to you, the fake Mizukage. But you still killed Yagura in the end, didn't you? Obito said leisurely. Shuang showed a painful expression when she recalled the original scene. Yagura took good care of herself before she became Mizukage, but she personally took care of Yagura's life at that time. However, Terumi Mei didn't want to take action at that time, and Ching didn't. Only Captain Anbu, who didn't care about reputation, had the courage to take action. Once Yagura completely transforms into a tailed beast, Kurigakure doesn't know how much damage will be caused. This will be something more terrifying than the Konoha Nine Tails rebellion. Yagura was in the Mizukage building at the time, and after losing control, he was in the middle of the village. Central, such a loss is unimaginable, and the Kingdom of Water is likely to be devastated by this. Recalling the past Zongzong, it was almost a common problem in all villages that the Bloodstained family had conflicts with the common people. At first, Yagura was very excited when he ordered the Bloodstained family to be exterminated, but he saw more and more blood stained on the knife, which made him very excited. One day he suddenly came to his senses. Does doing this really make Kurigakure stronger? Is this really the same strong and gentle Yagura? Once he has doubts, he can't help but pry into Yagura's secrets. When he knows that the perfect Jinchuriki has been hit by an unknown person, when Uchiha takes complete control, his world collapses. He didn't believe what he saw was the truth at first, but the less he believed it, the more he wanted to find out, until he heard that the other party's target was the three tails in Yagura's body, not only one three tails but also all the tailed beasts. Vaguely heard that the other party would seal the tailed beasts into one thing, but he could not imagine what thing could have such great power to seal all the tailed beasts. He didn't know how destructive the things behind sealing these tailed beasts would be. He already knew at that time that Yagura could not be saved. Even if he came to his senses, he would blame himself to death. He thought for a long time and finally put this matter into perspective. After telling Terumi Mei, several people worked together to expose Obito's conspiracy. Shuang thought of Yagura's smile to him before he died, that kind of pleased look, and he would definitely feel that his choice was the right one. Thinking of this, Shuang clenched the sword in his hand and looked at Obito. You guys who only care about yourself don't understand what the village means to us. There is not much chakra left in Shuang's body, and his momentum is rising again at this moment. Oh, stupid, ridiculous. Obito was not moved at all. How could a person with such knowledge understand his great plan? Everything he did was to achieve true peace for the entire ninja world. Then let's fight. Trying to convince someone with different opinions is the most ridiculous thing for adults. The two of them have different purposes and different ideals and only live and die at this moment today. Shuang focused all the chakra on his ninja sword. Whether it was for Kurigakure or Yagura who admired him, he had to defeat the man in front of him. No longer thinking about the past, no longer thinking about the future, injecting all his chakra into this ninja sword, this will be a move that puts his life on the line. Planetary devastation. Tiandao's hands slowly opened, and a chakra highly condensed into a black sphere appeared in his palm. This seemingly small black ball flew directly towards Yilan, who had not yet recovered from his energy. Yellen, who was in Susanoo, just wanted to move when he discovered that the black ball was attached to Susanoo. At the same time, it attracted all surrounding objects in a large area. Yellen began to swing Susanoo's long sword continuously. Clean up all the objects that are attracted to it. This is doomed to be in vain. Yilan, who uses Susanoo, can no longer rely on his speed. His huge size not only enhances defense and strength, but also makes him a living target. At first it was just trees and gravel, but in the end the surrounding ground was lifted up by the suction force, and huge stones directly surrounded Susanoo into a sphere composed of rocks. Is this something a human can do? Asuma, who had been holding a cigarette in his mouth, had already evacuated to the side, carrying Ino and others who had just passed out on his back. He opened his mouth wide and let the cigarette fall directly from his mouth. Fall. Nagato, for you to use this trick. Conan also returned to Tiandao. He knew that Nagato's health was not good and excessive use of the reincarnation eye would affect his body. At this moment, he couldn't help but feel a little worried. It doesn't matter. I have reduced the use of the samsara eye, and the power is much smaller. It has little effect on me. Tiandao's expression was calm, and he didn't seem to be affected at all. Click. A few pieces of the huge rock formed by the planetary devastation in the sky slid down. Tiandao, who had always been expressionless, finally showed a slight fluctuation. His eyes were a little confused, and he looked up at the boulder. The rocks above were loosening faster, and large pieces fell down. A dazzling white light emerged from the rock, as if it had become a miniature sun. There was a loud bang, and a giant falcon with a light blue body came out. It turned out that at the last moment, Yilan channeled his spirit out of Po Jun. At this moment, he was lying on Po Jun's body in embarrassment. The planetary devastation move just now almost completely destroyed the whole body. Susan was completely crushed and crushed. Even with the blessing of natural energy, his current physical condition was still very poor. Moreover, with the ability to use his left and right eyes continuously in Susano, his eyes are starting to hurt a little now. Did you save a life by relying on a strange psychic beast? Tiandao didn't care. In his opinion, Yilan's trump card was almost exposed. Unless he relied on Po Jun to escape directly, Tiandao would have nothing to do with him. The method is to catch up. The most important thing is that Tiandao cannot be too far away from Nagato, otherwise Nagato will not be able to control it all. Seeing that Yellen neither came down nor attacked, Tiandao couldn't help but reach out to Ying and the others who were lying on the ground not far away. They moaned in pain while sucking, and they were obviously still breathing. Heaven will not say that you will kill these people if you don't come down. He came here with no intention of letting these people leave alive. A black stick appeared in his hand and stabbed directly through Ying's heart. He who was originally unconscious now opened his eyes wide. It was Special Jonin Grandmaster who had good strength to assassinate, but he died so easily. Sasuke lay on the ground and made a beast-like sound. Asuma held down his body tightly to prevent him from moving. Although they didn't get along for long, they were Sasuke's companions after all. It looked like his mouth was a bit vicious and he gave himself a warning when he entered Anbu. After 2 missions, he understood that this squad leader was not too bad after all. Especially the last time they saw the dispute between Yellen and Danzo in the Konoha surveillance room, Kokage directly brought the video to him and asked him to hand it over to Tsunade. From then on, Sasuke recognized this teammate, and when he wanted to do it again by the time he got to know the team, he was gone forever. The roar seemed to wake up Shikamaru. He opened his eyes drowsily and saw Sasuke staring straight ahead, while Asuma had been holding him down to prevent him from moving. He couldn't help but look in the direction Sasuke was looking at. The scene in front of him made his eyes widen. The mountain rat's strong body was directly thrown aside by Tiandao. His originally small eyes also showed a look of disbelief. Then Tiandao grabbed the antelope's hair and lifted her up. The originally shiny blonde hair also became a little dull at this time, and a painful sound came out of his mouth. Yilan, boy, aren't you okay yet? Po Jun, who had human emotions, couldn't stand it anymore and kept urging Yilan. Sitting on Po Jun's back, Yilan's eyes that had been closed finally reopened at this moment. There was a strange blue color in the corners of his eyes, and the Sharingan in his eyes became no longer so deep, and seemed to become a little brighter. This was the first time he had completely controlled the natural energy in his body and used it in actual combat. If it hadn't been for Po Jun, he didn't know how long it would have taken to complete it. Seeing such a scene, Yilan jumped directly off Po Jun's back. His body, which was enhanced by natural energy, was several times heavier than before. He jumped directly to the ground at high altitude, kicking up layers of dust. Yilan watched with his eyes. Tiandao, there is no joy in his expression. Tiandao's black stick, which he was about to stab into the antelope, stopped at this moment. He looked at the expressionless Yilan in front of him and said, "Do you feel the pain?" Yilan was stunned for a moment by Tiandao's inexplicable words. Tiandao didn't care and directly threw the antelope aside. Killing a woman was a bit troublesome for him, and he didn't want to do it if he had to. It seems that your pain level is not enough. Tiandao continued to speak words that Yilan could not understand. Who are you? Yilan really doesn't understand what this neurotic guy wants to do. He is not afraid of neurosis, but he is afraid that neurosis has strong strength. Tiandao is now a powerful psychopath in his eyes. I am God. Tiandao's body slowly suspended in the air without relying on anything, and the chakra on his body burst out continuously. God, Yi Lan smiled playfully, only people who are not confident in their strength would call themselves that. Yi Lan drew out the ninja sword and pointed it at the way of heaven. The blade of the ninja sword instantly burned with flames. The color of the flame changed from red to blue at the beginning and finally turned into white. This was the result of Yi Lan adding natural energy. The temperature had been changed, raised to an extreme. Ridiculous. Tiandao was not satisfied with Yi Lan's answer, so you people from big countries are born with arrogance and don't care about the pain of others. Then, let you feel the real pain. All things Tianian. Pain stretched out a hand towards Yellen, and an unparalleled suction force came directly from the direction of Tiandao. Yellen's eyes were spinning crazily at this moment, not caring about the sequelae caused by Mangekyo. Bioshin Yuzhong directly launched, and in pay the moment N raised his hand, he left the spot. A whistling sound broke through the air quickly, and figures from Yellen came from all directions. The ninja swords in their hands glowed white, and all Hokage attacked Tiandao. Shinra Tianzhong. It is a bit similar to Huishin, but its range is much larger than Huishin, and there is no need to rotate one's body. The huge repulsion made all Yi Lan's clones disappear, but Yi Lan's original body did not know where it was hidden. Wolliu Rising Dragon's Flame. Yellen, who had been waiting for him, broke out of the ground. He had been hiding underground just now. At this moment, the fire dragon on the ninja sword roared and pointed directly at the throat of Tiandao. Tiandao reacted quickly, regardless of the temperature of the flames, and directly combined his hands to clamp Yellen's offensive ninja sword. Yellen, who was already possessed by natural energy, was so powerful that he directly crushed Tiandao in terms of strength. Before Yi Lan could use his advantage again, a repulsive force appeared around Tiandao again and pushed Yi Lan's entire body into the distance. After rolling a few times to relieve his strength, Yi Lan looked at Tiandao with an unusual expression. Tiandao's hands have turned into Kurozumi. Most people would have been unconscious at this time, but he was just a little out of breath. Conan hurried forward to check on the condition of the heavenly path. What she felt distressed about was not this body. No matter how damaged the existence of the hell path was, it would be repaired, but Nagato's body could not hold on. A chirping sound startled the two of them. They looked up and saw Yellen's psychic beast. At this moment, Asuma and the others were already on its back. Even the antelope that had just been thrown aside was supported by Shikamaru. Go up and get ready to go now. Don't even think about it. Just as Tiandao made a move, Yi Lan interrupted him directly. God, your technique has a 5-second vacuum period, right? The Mangekyo in Yi Lan's eyes glowed strangely red, and Naomi Fujin had already seen the weakness of Tiandao. Feeling pain. Do you think you are the protagonist in a tragedy? Didn't I say before, your attack is useless to me? Obito looked at the man in front of him calmly. This kind of courage to face death is admirable, but no matter how courageous he is without strength, it is useless. Shuang was silent. At this time, he didn't want to waste any more energy. Even if he could only improve the possibility by 0.01%, he would try his best to complete it. Water style. Water cut off. A water blade forms around the frost. If Obito wants to attack him, he must pass through the water blade. If he wants to catch him, his body must appear. In this case, he will inevitably be attacked by the water blade. Obito has always been frustrated by this ninjutsu, which is even more difficult to deal with than a hedgehog. Coupled with the opponent's terrifying reflexes, as long as he exposes his body, he will definitely be cut into several pieces. Fire style. Great fireball. The sound of fighting not far away was getting louder and louder. Obito knew that the battle between Nagato and Yellen was probably getting more intense. He had to hurry up and use Great Fireball to continuously attack the opponent while covering his own figure. The flame will be extinguished when it encounters the water blade, but the water will also be evaporated. With Obito's constant consumption, Frost's defense finally has a gap. Right now, Obito's disembodied figure passed through the opponent's attack and directly grabbed Shuang's shoulder through the gap. After succeeding, Obito's figure became blurry again, and the big knife in Shuang's hand was wrapped in the rotating water and slashed horizontally towards Obito's waist. How could I be easily attacked? Obito has always been wary of Shuang's sword. This weapon is the only thing that poses a threat to him. As long as he is hit by it, he will definitely be seriously injured. The ninja sword had just passed through Obito's virtual body, and Obito's body became material again. This time he could twist off the opponent's arm as long as he activated Kamui. Schwang grinned after seeing that the big knife missed the attack, and the left hand that had been holding the big knife began to exert force. The water on the knife rotated faster, even more powerful than before, and it was forced back as if the reverse button was pressed. Water style, countercurrent water blade. Oops, Obito's expression changed and he entered the hollow again. Fortunately, his hollow did not have a vacuum period like Nagato's, and his hollow body avoided this fatal blow again. There was no miracle again this time. The water blade failed to attack Obito in the end. Schwang, who had exhausted all his strength, swung the sword in the air. The entire offensive just hit the ground, and the water flow surrounding the sword remained on the ground with a splash. It's over. Obito grabbed Schwang's shoulders and activated Kamui. The space began to distort, and Schwang's entire body was about to be absorbed into it. Has Schwang given up? How is it possible? In the eyes of this man, there is only success or death. The captured left hand could not move. At this critical moment, his right hand directly pulled off the bandage wrapped around the handle of the knife, revealing the original appearance of the big knife. It turned out that this big knife had no handle at all, and the entire blade was a blade. Schwang just wrapped a special bandage around the handle to prevent himself from scratching himself, and it came in handy at this moment. Schwang endured the discomfort of being distorted by Kamui, and fiercely slashed his left shoulder towards the blade. Even Obito was shocked. Schwang cut off his left arm alive. Ah! After leaving Kamui's range, Schwang looked up to the sky and screamed. Blood was still spurting out of his arms, covering his whole body, and his whole body was like a blood-soaked demon. What a madman! Even Obito couldn't help but sigh. What kind of courage and will it takes to cut off his own arm while alive? It's a pity that such a person is not loyal to himself. Obito didn't give Frost a chance to breathe again. Frost, who could no longer use ninjutsu and ninjutsu, was out of danger. All he had to do was stab a kunai to kill him. As he expected, the kunai stabbed directly into Schwang's heart. What he looked like just now was just his last glimpse. Schwang was vomiting blood. His only remaining hand was tightly grasping Obito's clothes, and his mouth was struggling like a mosquito. In a loud voice, "I caught you." So what? Obito looked at the frost slowly falling in front of him and didn't know what he was thinking. I will win in the end. Thump. Obito was finally relieved. Schwang's body collapsed completely, and his eyes never closed. The strange thing was that there was no reluctance or despair but a light look in his eyes. Puff. Schwang's blood penetrated Obito's heart with a few water droplets like bullets. When Obito began to have difficulty breathing, his face turned white, his legs were weak and he knelt down. Only then did he see a pool of water on the ground. Obito's eyes widened. At this time, after the frost reversed the water blade attack, stay, add the guy's blood and release the last technique that is not even ninjutsu to solve himself. This guy had no intention of surviving in the first place. Obito made the 3 seals of Mao, high and way with difficulty, which was his last resort to save his life. Izanagi. Obito's body disappeared from the same place, even faster than Kamui's disappearance. The main body appeared directly at the position a few minutes ago. At this moment, he was intact as before, showing no signs of injury, except that the left eye under the mask was dim. Izanagi made a Sharingan activate the ultimate genjutsu at the cost of permanent blindness. The most terrifying thing is that the target of this genjutsu is himself. It can return himself to the state he was in a few minutes ago. No matter what damage he suffered, he will recover as before. This time Obito did not step forward to check on Schwang's body. Although he won the victory, he was just afraid that the other party might have some backups. As long as he did not take the initiative to take risks, no matter how much other people put their efforts into it, their efforts would be in vain. This is how Obito can survive. The truth I have realized so far is definitely not because I am timid. Obito. Black and white Zetsu came out of the ground directly. It's really embarrassing. When dealing with a Kurigakur Jonin, he actually used all Izanagi and wasted a 3 Magatama Sharingan. He could have used wood style earlier. Quote. This time, Obito surprisingly did not refute the name Black and White called him. He was silent for a moment and said, ninjutsu-like wood style cannot be used easily. To deal with him, you only need to use the power of Sharingan. Boom! There was a roar not far away, and the Black Susan had been surrounded by planetary devastation. Yelan's struggle was useless in Obito's eyes. He knew best the gap between Mangekyo and the Rinnegan, even if Nagato could only use the Rinnegan. Part of his strength is enough to deal with Yelan. Obito, Uchiha Yelan feels wrong to me. Black and White didn't show any joy. He always felt that Yelan's Mangekyo was a bit too strong. From the very beginning of the birth of the ninja world, Black and White had never seen many Mangekyo. The Uchiha people have never seen anyone as strong as him, and judging from the way Yelan fights, it seems that Mangekyo has very little side effects on him. Humph, you are just a junior after all. Mangekyo is no match against the Rinnegan. Even if Obito knew that the real owner of the Rinnegan was Madara, he would not easily provoke Nagato. If he faced the current, even if Nagato uses all his cards, he may not be able to win. As soon as Obito finished speaking, the boulder formed by planetary devastation collapsed. Yelan stood on the huge falcon and rushed out of the seal of planetary devastation. Obito and Black and White glanced at each other, both seeing each other's surprise, and hurried directly in the direction of Nagato without saying anything. Tiandao did not expect that Yelan could see the weakness of the Samsara Eye after just a few fights. In this case, there was no possibility of letting Yelan live. Why hasn't it been solved yet? Obito's figure appeared next to Nagato. Under his calm words, he was actually extremely shocked. He looked at Yelan with light blue eyeshadow in the corner of his eyes and felt a little surprised. Yelan saw that Obito had rushed back unscathed, and felt even more pressure. He was not sure how to deal with Tiandao alone, let alone Obito. Want to escape? Obito looked at Po Jun, who was just about to take off. The figure sneaked in like a ghost. Yelan wanted to intercept it, but Tiandao raised a hand and activated Wanxiang Tianyan again. Yelan couldn't help but moved closer to Tiandao, and watched as Obito caught up with Po Jun. Po Jun was already on guard, staring at Obito with its sharp eyes. Its wings began to stir up strong winds, and hurricanes formed under its body and began to block Obito's footsteps. Obito calmly transformed his body and passed directly through the hurricane, trying to grab Po Jun's claws that had already left the ground with one hand. At this moment, the lightning flashed on Po Jun's claws. Obito had no choice but to give up this plan and watched Po Jun slip away from him. Don't even think about escaping. Obito's pursuit behind him had failed. Conan in front waved his paper wings and arrived in front of Po Jun. Detonating symbols exploded in front of Po Jun, and brilliant fireworks instantly appeared in midair. A layer of light appeared all over Po Jun's body, completely surrounding the Asuma people on its back, and he passed directly through the explosion. He didn't forget to say something before leaving. Little girl, I don't have time to play with you. Why are you tickling me here? Ignoring Conan's surprised expression, he flew away directly. Sure enough, Uchiha Yelan's psychic beast is a being who cultivates natural energy just like that old toad. The knowledgeable Black and White Jew has been quietly observing every move on the battlefield. Do you feel in danger? Do you want Obito and Nagato to join forces to kill him? Baizetsu in the other half spoke. There is little hope. Uchiha Yelan, who has no worries about his future, will not fight here. Black Zetsu also had such a plan, but after seeing Yelan's speed several times, he understood that whether it was Nagato or Obito, he wanted to. It is impossible to keep Yelan unless powerful barriers are arranged in advance to control Yelan. Oh, no one will bother you anymore. Yelan stood up straight, and Po Jun finally sent away those burdens. Just as Heiju said, he could escape from the beginning, but in this way, besides being a rebel, he could return to Mu. It would be impossible for Yi to develop towards the center of power, and it would be more difficult to investigate Uchiha. To be honest, I have never understood your purpose this time. Now I understand that you are just trying to silence me. What secrets does Shuang, a ninja, have that would allow a person like you to take action? Yelan has observed Shuang and is very powerful. He's pretty strong but not a blood-stained ninja. He's at a level that's close to the ceiling for regular ninjas. But for such a person, they personally dispatched 3 people. In addition to the two people who held back Konoha, another person suspected of being from the Uchiha clan pointed directly at Frost. It doesn't hurt to tell you our purpose. Tiandao put down his raised right hand and said something unexpected. This can also be regarded as a warning to Konoha. You people born in big countries don't care about the feelings of small countries at all, and you have plunged the entire ninja world into pain and disaster. Everything our organization does is for the peace of the ninja world. Tiandao stated his ideals calmly. It is his ultimate goal and the fulfillment of Yahiko's last wish. Yellen is not like ordinary people in the ninja world. As a modern person, he will not judge the purpose of the person based on his current state and what he has done. Instead, he thought for a while and said, "This kind of thing is very difficult to do." Yes, do you want to conquer everyone in the ninja world with your samsara eye? Nagato's expression behind the scenes fluctuated slightly when he heard that Yellen didn't curse or say wishful thinking like a normal person, but instead seriously considered the possibility of him doing this. Don't talk nonsense to him, just capture him, Obito said a little irritably after his return. He suffered too much today, and the feeling Yellen gave him made him very uncomfortable. Wait a minute. Tiandao ignored Obito's expression and directly stopped his movements, and asked Shang Yellen tentatively, "Uchiha Yellen, do you think people can understand each other?" After hearing this, Yi Lan smiled disdainfully and said, "Why would such a powerful god have such thoughts?" Tiandao said nothing but stared at Yi Lan to see what he would say. Seeing the situation at this moment, Yi Lan knew that he might not be able to fight, so he put the ninja sword back into the scroll and said, "I don't know if you have ever heard of a saying, don't tell others to be good if you haven't experienced their suffering, if you have experienced their suffering, they may not be good to them." As Nagato chewed on the meaning of these words over and over behind his back, he felt that Yellen's thoughts were obviously different from those of ordinary ninjas. Yi Lan continued without giving him much room to think. People can never truly understand each other completely. In my opinion, each person is an independent individual. They have experienced different things since childhood and met different people. These will affect a person. Human growth and thought. Even if two people have the same experience, they will have different thoughts and endings due to their personalities. Everyone is unique. Even if a person says that he can understand others, it is just comfort out of sympathy. He has not experienced it. The same thing happened. How did he understand the inner fluctuations of the person involved when the incident happened? I understand that if your sentence could summarize the turbulent and wandering life of the person involved, it would be too childish. Quote. Nagato was like an enlightenment, thinking about everything that happened to him, and felt how ridiculous his and Yahiko's thoughts were at that time. Even if one person wholeheartedly wanted to understand that one person could not be perfect, they actually wanted to let the powerful Muyi and Sunagaku understand the difficulties of Rain Country. Uchiha Yellen, join us. Tiandao stretched out a hand. This time it was no longer an attacking action, but an invitation with the palm facing up. Pen, what are you thinking? How could a guy like Uchiha Yellen join us? Obito was speechless. How could Nagato be deceived so easily? Although he agreed with what Yellen said, he couldn't believe it. I feel that Yi Lan is not an easy person to get along with. If he joins Shao, he is likely to discover his purpose. Konan has been silent and has no opinion on this matter. She has always supported all Nagato's actions, but Obito's reaction made her feel a little uncomfortable. A person like him must have ulterior motives for staying in Konoha. He has other ideas about the village that raised him. How can we trust him? Obito said anxiously in Tiandao's ear, and don't forget that he and Itachi will fight to the death. What are you mumbling about that guy over there who hides his head and tail? I can listen to you. With the addition of natural energy, Yellen's hearing has improved a lot, and Obito's mumbling can't hide it from him. Actually, I was curious about who you were from the beginning. Not from the Uchiha clan. Or, what role did you play on the night when Uchiha was destroyed? Junior, Obito yelled in a deep voice, hiding his head and revealing his tail. Is he so unqualified wearing a mask? How can someone who always cares about his family have any sense? What he wants is the peace of the entire ninja world. You were not born when I conquered the ninja world. Don't think that you will be invincible after you have Mangekyo. Don't speak like a senior. Yi Lan's body suddenly rose up, and the ninja sword appeared in his hand again. Baiati and Yuzhong launched it again, leaving a gust of wind under his feet at a speed invisible to the naked eye. Rushed towards Obito. So fast. Obito has heard other people in Shao describe Yelan's speed, and he couldn't help but be amazed until he faced it in person. He knew that he couldn't avoid it at all and could only blur his body. For someone like Obito, who was unknown to his identity and suspected of being Uchiha, Yelan directly treated him as a traitor to the Uchiha clan. He didn't believe that Uchiha had become like this. Obito didn't know, and he also stayed with Itachi in the Akatsuki and was probably a member of the third generation. As mentioned before, Itachi's accomplice at that time. The ninja sword passed directly through Obito's body. Yelan's expression fluctuated a little, just like Sasuke's attack at the beginning. He looked at the opponent's mask and saw that the exposed Sharingan had turned into a shuriken. Sure enough, it was the opponent. Mangekyo's abilities. Junior, you should show some respect to your seniors. After passing through the ninja sword, Obito transformed into a physical entity and directly grabbed Yelan's wrist. There was a hint of disdain at the corner of Yelan's mouth, and he saw that the hand Obito grabbed directly formed a storm, and countless swift blades were attached to Yelan's body. This kind of wind escape protection made anyone who came into contact with Yelan enemies will be injured. When Obito saw that his palm was scratched, he quickly took a few steps back. He saw that this was a hedgehog that was more difficult to deal with than Shuang, and he had no way of starting. Tell Itachi that sooner or later I will use his head to worship the souls of the Uchiha clan. Yelan pointed at Obito with his ninja sword. Tiandao had been watching the fight between Yelan and Obito just now and had no intention of taking action, which made Yelan couldn't help but look at him a few more times. I join you, please forgive me for not obeying your orders. In my opinion, your ideal is good, but it is too difficult. Even if I join, it will not help. And I will not think about other things until my own family's affairs are settled. Regarding Tiandao, Yelan directly denied that he had no idea of changing the ninja world. In his opinion, people with such ideas are indeed great, but they are destined to die miserably. That's such a pity. Tiandao stopped forcing him. Since Yelan could say such words, he was not a person who could force himself. He glanced at Conan and motioned to leave with him. Pen, let him go just like that. Even though Obito tried his best to suppress it, the anger could still be heard. Call me God. Just now Tiandao was dissatisfied with the other party calling him by his name in front of outsiders, but he never expressed it. The second time, he weakened his image without even getting angry. Besides, with Uchiha Yelan's speed, who do you think can stop him? After hearing this, Obito looked at Yelan's previous position, and there was his figure there. Shuang, what kind of secret does this person have? Yelan passed by Shuang's body and stopped. Under his perception, Tiandao and others had left the place and did not choose to pursue him. At this moment, the eyeshadow on Yelan's eyes also disappeared. Looking at Shuang's broken body, he couldn't help but frown, touched the big knife that was still standing, sighed, and put the knife back into the scroll. He has an inexplicable hostility towards Uchiha, especially the man wearing the Uzumaki mask. Even Akatsuki sent out 3 people just to kill this man. If he wanted to ask clearly, he wouldn't answer, but Yelan took out a test tube, filled it with some Shuang's blood, and murmured, "You can't understand it while you're alive, but you can give me a lot of information after you die." Just as he was finishing up, there was some movement in the distance, and Yelan quickly put away the test tube. He saw a group of Kurigakur Anbu appearing around him. Everyone made a sound of disbelief after seeing Shuang's body. The Anbu who surrounded Yelan for a moment dispersed into a passage, and only saw a man wearing a coat with the word, "water," printed on it. The tall woman in a bamboo hat came over. When she walked to Shuang's body, she couldn't help but squat down, sighed and said, "Sorry, I'm late." Master Frost. Chojuro had already rushed to Frost's body and couldn't help but shed tears. Changjuro, a Kurigakur ninja wearing an eye patch, shouted loudly. Although there was sadness on his face, he still did not lose his etiquette. After all, the ninjas from other villages were still present. Yelan, are you okay? Asma also hurriedly squeezed in. He had always been worried about Yelan at the rear. The power of the Samsara Eye left a deep impression on him. Yelan, who was so powerful, was suppressed throughout the process. Beat. It's okay. I just have a few broken bones. I'll just take care of myself. Yi Lan relaxed a little. He seemed fine on the outside, but in fact he had been holding on. After being bombarded by planetary devastation and Shinra Tianzhong, his several ribs were broken. Sasuke, where are they? Yi Lan also asked without seeing Sasuke and others. Mizukage-sama has arranged for them to rest in the hospital. Sasuke insisted on coming and I held him down too. Asuma saw that Yellen was fine and took out a cigarette, trying to catch his breath. When he was about to take out the cigarette, a cold look looked at him. It was none other than 5th Mizukage Terumi Mei. Asuma was so excited that he quickly put the cigarette back. You are Uchiha Yellen, I've admired your name for a long time. Terumi Mei stopped caring about Asuma and walked towards Yellen and said, Thank you. At this moment, Yi Lan finally saw the other party's appearance clearly. He was wearing a dark blue strapless tube top dress, which was somewhat inconsistent with Mizukage's solemn identity. It added a touch of temptation, with long brown curly hair reaching to his ankles, and a strand of her hair covered her right eye, and the exposed left eye exuded charm. Yellen's first impression was not that of a high-ranking Mizukage, but of the mature sister next door. This is not the place to talk. Come back to the village with me to check your injuries first. Terumi Mei looked at the handsome guy in front of her with some curiosity. He was very mature for his young age. The most important thing was that she knew Shuang's strength very well. Even if it was possible that he would lose to this confidant who was once the target of 4th generation, but Yi Lan didn't seem to be seriously injured. Wait a minute, here's it for you. Yi Lan took out 2 scrolls. Originally, he planned to see Mizukage and give them to him. Terumi Mei stopped and looked at Yi Lan thoughtfully. I'll leave this ninja sword to you for safekeeping. Yi Lan took out the former thunder sword and the big sword that had just been put away from Shuang from the scroll. After receiving the ninja sword, Terumi Mei's green pupils flashed with pain and helplessness. Now Kurigakure couldn't find a suitable ninja to inherit these 2 swords. After experiencing that chaos, Kurigakure's masters had suffered too many losses. Much more. Thank you Yi Lan for taking care of Jonin. Thank you to Hokage-sama for me. Terumi Mei bowed lightly to Yi Lan. Yi Lan did not avoid knowing that this bow was for Tsunade. How's the injury? Yellen went to Sasuke's ward after a simple treatment. As for Asuma, he went to talk to Terumi Mei about the alliance. He didn't need to go there for the time being. He would sign the contract when it was almost confirmed. When it comes time to make a covenant, he will go over and go through the motions. How is the enemy? Sasuke was relieved after seeing Yi Lan and asked with a somewhat lonely expression. It's good if I can come back alive. Yi Lan smiled a little self-deprecatingly. The enemy is so strong. Can't Mangekyo even deal with it? Sasuke had already learned some information about Mangekyo from Yellen and couldn't help but ask. Do you think the other party is an ordinary ninja? Those eyes are the same as the legendary sage of 6 paths, the Samsara Eye. Of course Sasuke has heard of the legend of Sage of 6 Paths. The creator of the ninja world and the original ancestor of chakra, such legendary eyes actually exist. Seeing that Sasuke was a little frustrated, Yi Lan thought for a moment and said, Actually, I feel that Mangekyo is not the upper limit of the Uchiha clan. Sasuke looked at Yi Lan fiercely, the Sharingan in his eyes had been turned on, and the 3 Magatama were slowly rotating. It's 3 Magatama. Yi Lan looked into Sasuke's eyes. Unexpectedly, after this incident, Sasuke opened the 3 Magatama, but this method of opening was really ironic. Sasuke was a little stunned after hearing this. Yi Lan took out a mirror and said to Sasuke, It seems that your dead teammates inspired you to activate the 3 Magatama. Sasuke was not happy because of the 3 Magatama at the moment. He would rather not get the strength gained by the death of his teammates. Haven't you always wanted to know how to turn on Mangekyo? Yellen sighed, hoping that Sasuke would not go to extremes in the future. The current Sasuke was beyond his control in a few words. Seeing that Sasuke, who had been silent, finally reacted, Yellen continued, the conditions for opening Mangekyo are the same as those for opening Sharingan. It requires strong emotional stimulation. The difference is that if you evolve into a 3 Magatama, the stimulation level is 1. Then the stimulation Mangekyo needs is 10. 10 times the pain now. When Sasuke heard this, he thought it was impossible. Do you know why there is so little information about Mangekyo in the clan? Yi Lan walked to the window and looked into the distance, because there is another rumor about Mangekyo. Sasuke's ears pricked up. He had to remember this information to the letter. That is to kill the person you cherish most. Only under such stimulation will Mangekyo be activated. Sasuke's eyes returned to black, and at that moment the pupils became as small as needles. He said excitedly, "Then this is the purpose of Itachi killing the clan." No, Yi Lan directly denied it without thinking. If Itachi hadn't activated Mangekyo, it would be impossible to deal with so many Uchiha clan members, even a sneak attack would be impossible. Besides, I have always suspected that your father has activated Mangekyo. Dad, Sasuke didn't expect to mention his father again. Yes, Shisui told me about this. Shisui was also the one who opened Mangekyo. He kept telling me that the clan leader's strength was a bit unclear, and he felt that the other party might have opened these eyes. The Uchiha clan conceals the truth about Mangekyo, probably because they are afraid that some crazy clan members will continue to kill their relatives for the power of Mangekyo. Yi Lan continued to express his opinion, but in my opinion, simply for the power of Mangekyo, no matter how much you kill, it won't open. Sasuke. Yi Lan turned around, and the Sharingan in his eyes had turned into a cross-shaped Mangekyo. If one day I know that you are hurting unrelated people around you in order to activate Mangekyo, I will definitely kill you with my own hands. How could I do such a thing? Sasuke said one word at a time. Even if he takes revenge, he must rely on his own power instead of becoming a slave to power. Looking at Sasuke's serious expression, Yellen closed his eyes and showed an imperceptible smile, and then said, "Although I can't let you open Mangekyo immediately, I have a cultivation method. If it succeeds, it will not be weaker than the power of Mangekyo Sharingan." What is it? Sasuke couldn't help but ask when he heard that there was a power comparable to Mangekyo. He already understood the difficulty of opening Mangekyo. This kind of power could not be forced at all. He could only slowly wait for an opportunity. Yi Lan stretched out a finger and slowly approached a wall. Under Sasuke's surprised gaze, the whole finger was effortlessly inserted into it, and then he pulled it out, leaving a small round hole. This power is not chakra, but something called natural energy. This is just a small use of natural energy. Yi Lan raised his finger, not seeing a trace of chakra fluctuations. "Remember to give it to you is that the big bird that came back." Sasuke recalled that majestic big bird and couldn't help but feel a little envious. It was not only powerful but also fast-flying. It was definitely one of the perfect psychic beasts. Natural energy is what those big birds taught me. After practicing natural energy, physical fitness will be improved several times. If natural energy is mixed with ninjutsu, both the power and range will be improved. It's just that before turning on Mangekyo Sharingan, if you practice this natural energy for a long time, it may affect Mangekyo's awakening. This is not Yellen's nonsense. If you want to practice natural energy, you must let go of yourself and make the whole person calm. Mangekyo is also it requires strong stimulation, and practicing too much will definitely affect the awakening of Mangekyo. Similarly, conversely, if you can awaken Mangekyo after cultivating natural energy, it will definitely surpass the average Mangekyo. Another point is that with your current mentality, I am not too optimistic about cultivating natural energy. Sasuke was a little dissatisfied when he heard this. People who are called geniuses have their own arrogance. Cultivation of this kind of thing does require some talent, but the most important thing is a peaceful mind. Your current mind is too chaotic and inappropriate. Sasuke wanted to say something else, but Yi Lan's expression made the words he wanted to say get stuck in his throat. Yellen walked up to Sasuke and put her palms on his shoulders. "Just adjust it and give me an answer before returning to the village." Yellen would not take the initiative to influence Sasuke's choice. He truthfully told Sasuke the advantages and disadvantages of cultivating natural energy, and pointed out that Sasuke was not suitable for cultivating this kind of power at present. It was up to him how to make a choice. Shikamaru thought for a long time at the door of the ward, and finally sighed and said, "It's really troublesome." He opened the door directly. A blonde woman was sitting in a daze on the hospital bed, showing no reaction to Shikamaru's arrival. "Well, I brought you some food. I don't know if Kurigakure's food is to your liking." Shikamaru didn't care and found a chair to sit next to the hospital bed. Antelope didn't respond, and Shikamaru didn't care and said to himself, it's really troublesome. How could we carry out such a dangerous mission? We are lucky to survive the opponent's strength. Let's return to Konoha as soon as possible. Shikamaru opened the lunch box, which was all seafood. As a native of the fire country, he was really not used to eating this kind of food. He tentatively handed it to the antelope and said, eat something. The antelope's eyes reacted, and he slowly took the lunchbox and started eating. Shikamaru was relieved to see that she could still eat. He was afraid that the antelope would not eat a bite. It must be painful for his companion who has been with him for many years to die in front of him. He thought about Choji and Ino Shikamaru who were still lying in bed without holding on to each other. Fist. This time he felt powerless for the first time. Before, he had Asma and Yellen. Every time he performed a mission, he had a strong support from Jonin. Shikamaru would also feel that it didn't matter. When Asma and Yellen couldn't stop him, he was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered, and this feeling of powerlessness made him feel very unhappy. Thank you. The antelope finished the food in just a moment, and the cold voice was still so nice. Shikamaru couldn't help but smile, but the next sentence made him extremely embarrassed. But I don't need children to comfort me. As Anbu, the death of my companions is just a common occurrence for me. Antelope's eyes returned to clarity, as if he was saying something trivial. Don't always complain. He's dead, it means we are weak and the other is strong, and we cannot win against our opponents just by talking. Looking at the normal-looking antelope, Shikamaru couldn't help but feel that he was overthinking it. He took the lunchbox and said, then I won't bother you. I want to go see Choji and the others. After closing the door to the room, Shikamaru leaned against the wall and complained, sure enough, I'm not good at dealing with women. After that, Yi-Lan went to visit Shikamaru and the others again. Ino was still sleeping, and Choji was already holding a large bag of snacks and eating like crazy. It seemed that he was recovering well. Seeing Shikamaru, he felt that this kid seemed to be thinking about something. He was hesitant and unable to fart, which somewhat damaged his image of an intellectual genius. Yi Lanju thought that this encounter might have some impact on him, so he didn't ask further, and finally came to Antelope's room. Yellen Jonin. After seeing Yellen come in, Antelope wanted to sit up. She had something to ask. You have a good rest. I have arranged for Po-jun to transport their corpses back to Konoha. Yi Lan knew what Antelope wanted to ask, and waved his hand to signal her to lie down on the bed. If Kakashi knew that such a situation would happen, I don't know how guilty he would be. The Antelopes did not arrange to be on the same team with Sasuke casually. After Tsunade agreed to Sasuke's entry into Anbu, Kakashi also took great pains to select him. Several ninjas were Sasuke's teammates, and they personally came to tell Kage and others about this incident. No wonder Kakashi-senpai, as ninjas of Konoha, we have already had this awareness. Antelope shook his head. At first, Kakashi just asked them and gave them the right to refuse. Even if they hadn't agreed, if someone else had been Sasuke's teammate, today's result wouldn't have been much better. Do you need me to explain to Tsunade-sama that I want you to be transferred away from Anbu? Yellen was not just out of his mind. According to his principles, he was willing to lend a helping hand to people with good intentions. No, I'm used to Anbu's life, and I don't know what else I can do. Antelope didn't say the last sentence. As a commoner, she can't find any room for improvement. At present, she can only it's a chunin, and he will probably reach the level of special jonin in a few years. Apart from fighting, I am not good at anything else. I really don't know what else I can do without Anbu. Yi Lan had no intention of getting to the bottom of it. After seeing the other party's unspeakable secrets, he stopped disturbing him. He said a few words of comfort and left the room. With the friendly development of both parties, let's make progress together. The Kurigakur Jonin, who had been seen wearing an eye patch before, took the manuscript and began the speech after the two parties signed the alliance. Yi Lan also knew this person's name, On Zhao, the only white-eyed ninja outside Konoha. At this moment, he was giving a speech full of passion, and every important point would be ups and downs and impassioned. Even Yi Lan, who was a little sleepy, couldn't help but look at how this guy made the boring manuscript sound like a pre-war declaration. No matter how passionate the performance was, it was a bit boring for all the veterans here. Fortunately, the speech was not long. Only Ching still had some unfinished thoughts. He lamented that who made the manuscript so short and it ended before he could enjoy it. Okay, the covenant has been signed, and now we have to talk about some serious matters. After Ching sat down, Terumi Mei, the Mizukage, was the first to speak. Konoha can help Kurigakure re-establish the ninja school, but I don't know how much investment your village plans to invest. This has been mentioned in the covenant, and Asuma also asked this question when he contacted Terumi Mei before. Terumi Mei wanted to ask the elders again what they thought, but she never gave him an answer. To tell you the truth, Kurigakure can't afford much money now. After discussion, we plan to spend 10 million taels to rebuild the school. This 10 million taels was the initiative of Terumi Mei. At the beginning, Kurigakure's elders I only planned to give 6 million taels. Yi Lan heard that the other party wanted to build a ninja school with only this small amount of money. He thought Terumi Mei was a bit whimsical. 10 million yuan is enough to build a school, but what about the teachers' salaries? What kind of teachers can be hired with this little money? Teaching tools, textbooks, and training venues are free of charge. And most of these are consumables, which have to be thrown into this bottomless pit every year. It will be impossible to see the results every 10 or 8 years. 10 million is enough for what you can do. Sasuke's ninja sword costs more than 10 million. With all due respect, Mizukage-sama, 10 million is too little. Even if Konoha provides some resources, it is estimated that it can barely build a school, and the subsequent investment will be a lot. Asuma, who has never taught many students, they all felt that Mizukage's idea was a bit outrageous. It's no wonder that Mizukage doesn't count. Ever since the second Hokage promoted the ninja school, other villages have rarely implemented it. Kurigakure's school before was simply a killer training camp, and the investment costs were completely different. Does it cost so much? After listening to Asuma's constant explanations, Terumi Mei gained insight. Konoha has always attached great importance to education, but she didn't notice it at first until more and more outstanding ninjas appeared. After graduating from the ninja school, many people who seemed to have no talent at all began to shine. In the 3 battles, Konoha took turns to fight against the other 4 villages. This situation of constant talent makes Terumi Mei envious. Kurigakure is at the moment when talents are declining. He will die, run away, and rebel against the village. If nothing changes, Kurigakure will become weaker and weaker. Terumi Mei looked around, biting her lips when she saw everyone in Kurigakure flinching, and finally made a decision. No matter how difficult it is, we still have to do it. This is for the future of Kurigakure. Mizukage has made a decision, and the other Kurigakure ninjas have said nothing. There are almost no people in Kurigakure who can think now. If they are asked to fight and kill, they will just rush forward without thinking. This kind of brain using, just leave it to Mizukage. Seeing the expressions of Kurigakure and the others saying, "Mizukage, you have no problem with us," Terumi Mei couldn't help but rub her eyebrows. There's one more thing, Mizukage-sama. Asuma also saw that Kurigakure and the others were all working for nothing. If anyone could put forward some opinions, they could just tell Terumi Mei directly. Terumi Mei's delicate eyebrows wrinkled. What else is there? Isn't the money enough? Well, actually, I have also watched your village's teaching in the past few days. Kurigakure must have been planning to build a ninja school for a while. At present, the village has chosen a location, but many things have not been established, including training. The venue was randomly found in an open space. The teaching method in your village, how should I put it? I feel something is not right. Yellen. Asma, who didn't know how to describe it, called out to Yellen, who had been paddling aside. He knew that this kid was better than he is, much smarter, and he will definitely describe it better than himself. Yi Lan was wandering in his thoughts at the moment. Suddenly he heard Asma calling him and looked at him with some doubts. "You're not a buddy, I'm just going through the motions. It's none of my business." Looking at Yi Lan's confused look, Terumi Mei resisted the urge to get angry and kept telling herself that the other party was a guest and she couldn't be angry. The twitching lips showed her inner feelings at the moment. Asma looked at Yi Lan angrily, smiled awkwardly at Terumi Mei, then leaned into Yi Lan's ear and briefly explained what had just happened. After fighting side by side for several times, Asma also gained considerable trust in Yi Lan. Especially the behavior of Queen Yilan before made him favor him a lot. In addition, he had rescued Hong before, and now he no longer regards Yilan as an outsider. After listening to Asma's statement, Yilan said directly regardless of Terumi Mei's questioning eyes. What he means is that your teaching method is wrong. The school is a place to train students, not subordinates. Yilan described the situation Asma imagined in the simplest words. Seeing that Terumi Mei was still a little confused, Yilan continued. This method of training subordinates can produce some elites, but most of them will become mediocre. Training students is not just as simple as teaching ninjutsu to exercise their bodies. The most important thing is to promote ideas and let them increase their feelings for each other, and the teacher-student relationship will also be strengthened. Good companionship and friendship, these humble things can sometimes burst into unimaginable power at critical moments. Yilan knew until now, but didn't say anything in detail. Just like the army with will and the army without will in the previous life were completely different things. Konoha had been promoting the will of fire that he disdained, but it was undeniable that this thing was really real. It worked, and too many children who had just graduated from the ninja school with the will of fire became cannon fodder. If the small universe breaks out, 1 or 2 chunin will make a lot of money. With this hand, Konoha withstood the successive bombings of the other 4 ninja villages and won the war. After listening to Yilan's story, Asma couldn't help but give him a thumbs up in her heart. She couldn't think of it. It was indeed right to call Yilan. Terumi Mei thought for a moment and did not get too entangled. Konoha does have experience in this area. It is indeed rare for this young Uchiha Yellen to have such knowledge. After asking carefully, she ended this topic. The school's problem has almost been solved. Mizukage-sama, I personally still have some questions. Seeing that Yilan had almost said it, he put forward some ideas. Asuma, who originally thought it was about to end, looked at it with a look of disbelief. Shang Yellen, wasn't it just that you were so indifferent just now? Why is it now that you have a problem? Shikamaru, who had been listening to the exchanges at the back, showed a thoughtful expression. He had just been promoted to Chunin and had not had a chance to speak. He came here to really go through the motions. Haha. Little brother, if you have any questions, just ask me, as long as I know. Terumi Mei put her palm on her mouth and said with a smile. What I want to ask is, what happened between Kurigakure and Akatsuki? Yellen has always been curious about Akatsuki's purpose of attacking Kurigakure so violently. Maybe he can find the answer from the woman in front of him. Sorry, this kind of thing is related to Kurigakure's privacy and I can't answer it. Terumi Mei, who was smiling just now, suddenly changed her face and said seriously. Mizukage-sama, you should know that Konoha and Sunagakure have also established an alliance, right? Yilan was not surprised. The more Terumi Mei was like this, the more complicated things Akatsuki did in Kurigakure at that time, and she just mentioned Sunagakure in her mouth, hidden. Yellen Jonin, what are you doing? Are you threatening me? Terumi Mei's voice has become cold. The relationship between Kurigakure and Sunagakure is not good. Konoha has formed an alliance with the 2 villages at the same time, and they are afraid that there will be an alliance. Hit another situation. Yellen. Asma was sweating profusely and stepped forward to hold Yellen. If the people in Wuin village were really angry, it would not be easy for them to leave. Mizukage-sama, don't get excited. I didn't mean that. I just wanted to say that the information about Akatsuki, Sunagakure and Konoha is shared publicly. Yilan was not affected by the tense atmosphere and said nonchalantly. Information that made Terumi Mei's face change. Also, I encountered 2 Akatsuki operations. Their targets were 9 tails and 1 tail respectively. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.